Chapter 1088. Between heaven and earth, everything was dark. Only the everlasting divine dial shone brightly, divine and dazzling. A gentle breeze blew, and Chu Liyue's sleeves fluttered. As she watched the incomplete pattern on the infinite divine dial disappear with a loud bang, the stone in her heart finally fell to the ground. Whew! Thank goodness! Thank goodness! She managed to stop it at the very last moment. Chu Liyue rejoiced inwardly. Just a little more, and the needle would have reached 12. It was fortunate that she managed to save it in time. If the crowd below knew what she was thinking, they would probably vomit blood. Everyone was fighting to make the needle move 2 more times, but she was afraid that it would continue to move, so she stopped it. Chu Liyue retracted her hand. The light on the infinite divine dial gradually dimmed. Then, under countless shocked gazes, the infinite divine dial gradually disappeared into the void. At the top of the mountain, only the light of the lantern illuminated the woman's figure. Straight, slender, and graceful. She turned around and leaped onto the bridge formed by the golden light. Her footsteps were elegant, and her figure was light. In the blink of an eye, she was back in the ethereal hall. She jumped down from the bridge. Rong Xiu waved his sleeves, and the golden light dissipated into countless stars. In the darkness, the woman seemed to have walked out of the endless light. She walked up to Rong Xiu and smiled. "How is it? Are you satisfied with this result?" Rong Xiu looked at her with deep eyes. His thin lips curled up slightly as he smiled. "Yuer is always the best." Chu Liyue's eyes curved into crescents, but she soon realized that the surroundings were completely silent. She was stunned for a moment. She looked at the crowd and blinked her eyes in confusion, only to see them looking at her with shocked expressions. Were they stunned by that 11? Chu Liyue pondered. However, at this moment, Lin Dunfeng suddenly muttered, "That's right. Miss Dugu, your face." Chu Liyue's heart skipped a beat, and she immediately touched her face. Smooth and delicate. It was her own face. Chu Liyue widened her eyes slightly and looked at Rong Xiu, only to see Rong Xiu holding back his laughter and saying gently, "Don't you feel uncomfortable wearing that mask?" As expected, the mask had fallen off. What Chu Liyue didn't know was that when the needle of the everlasting divine dial pointed to 10, the mask on her face had already silently disappeared. It was just that she had placed all her attention on the everlasting divine dial at that time, so she didn't notice this. Under such circumstances, Chu Liyue suddenly dropped his mask. For a moment, he felt a little awkward. Cough. Chu Liyue coughed to cover it up. It's all right. During this period of time, she had been showing her face to others, so she had gotten used to it. Rong Xiu reached out and tidied up her messy hair that was blown by the mountain wind. His actions were rare and gentle. He looked at her as if he was looking at a rare treasure and treated her with extreme care. After a short moment of silence, the crowd finally broke out into whispers. "So this is Duguyu's true appearance. Otherworldly and elegant. Truly a beauty capable of toppling cities. I originally thought that Miss Jiang was already beautiful enough, but compared to her, Miss Jiang seems to have instantly become much duller. With such an appearance, no wonder His Highness the Holy Sun is so fond of her. Furthermore, her bloodline talent is also so high." After regaining their senses, many people exclaimed. Jiang Juan stared blankly at the 2 people standing side by side not far away. When she saw that Duguyu's bloodline had surpassed hers, her heart had already turned cold. At that time, the only consolation she could give herself was that although Duguyu was outstanding in other aspects, she had an ordinary face. At least in this aspect, she had won against Duguyu. But now, she knew that she was gravely mistaken. Duguyu. So this is what she looks like. She was wearing an ordinary red dress, and her hair was tied up simply. She did not wear any makeup, but she seemed to be more beautiful than the myriad of sceneries in the world. When she stood there, everything around her seemed to be overshadowed in an instant. Countless golden light spots dissipated behind her, illuminating her snow-white jade-like face. A pair of jade-like eyes seemed to ripple like water, and countless stars seemed to be hidden in them. She smiled, and her eyes curved into crescents. This was probably what it meant to be a beauty capable of toppling countries. Although she did not want to admit it, Jiang Ji1 knew that compared to her, she was indeed inferior. Since young, she had been the most outstanding in all aspects. Everything was the best. This was the first time she had been so thoroughly defeated by another girl. This blow came so quickly that she was a little dazed for a moment. For a moment, she even felt a bit of regret. She should not have come. From the beginning to the end, this banquet was just specially organized by Rong Xiu for her. He had put in so much effort for her, and he had done everything he could for her. Even though he knew that there would be countless objections if he allowed this girl to become the consort, he still did it. As for her, from the beginning to the end, he had not even spared her a single glance. She was nothing more than a joke. Rong Xiu helped Chu Luwe tidy up her hair and clothes, and his gaze lingered on her face for a moment. In truth, it had been a long time since he last saw her face. If not for the fact that they were still in the ethereal hall, and there were still people around, with such thoughts in mind, Rong Xiu wanted to resolve this matter as soon as possible. He turned around to look at Yu Jing and the others. Now, the consort position should belong to Yuer, right? Yu Jing and the others glanced at one another. Initially, they had rushed back to stop Rong Xiu, and the reason and excuse they came up with were reasonable. But who knew that Dugu Yu would actually pass all of them? It would be bad if they were to go back on their words now. I didn't expect Miss Dugu to have such a top-notch bloodline talent as well. I apologize for my ignorance earlier. If we have offended you in any way, please forgive us, Miss Dugu. Elder Jingchen was the first to react. After recovering from his shock, he quickly adjusted his state of mind and spoke with an amiable expression. It's just that, for some reason, the bloodline totem on the infinite divine dial didn't display its full strength. Given that Miss Dugu possesses such a powerful bloodline talent, I believe that her clan must be extremely powerful as well, right? May I know, which clan do you belong to? Hearing those words, everyone turned to look at Chu Luiwe. This was also what they were curious about. Chu Luiwe blinked her eyes and smiled. I'm just an ordinary clan outside the ethereal hall. It's not worth mentioning. Miss Dugu, are you still unwilling to reveal your identity at this point? If you aren't from a clan in the world of gods, it's impossible for the infinite divine dial to display such a level. Elder Yu Jing said impatiently. In his opinion, Chu Luiwe was just refusing to admit it, so there was no point in doing so. I forgot to introduce you. Rong Xiu suddenly spoke up. This is Ai's fiancé in the Empire of Glory Dawn, as well as the future consort of the Yuntian Tower, Shanghai Yu. Chapter 1089. Many people in the Yuntian Tower in the Empire of Yaochen had heard of this place. This was because Rong Xiu's mother had secretly married the emperor of the Empire of Yaochen. Everyone in the Yuntian Tower knew that he was the 7th prince of the Empire of Yaochen. These things had already spread like wildfire when they found Rong Xiu. Almost everyone knew about it. It was also because of this that Rong Xiu had always been regarded as a disgrace to the clan. If not for the fact that the infinite divine dial had automatically appeared in front of the sacrificial god temple and detected his astonishing talent and bloodline, he might have already been killed in front of all the ancestral tablets of the Yun Tianke sect. Over the years, as Rong Xiu's cultivation improved, his authority in the Yuntian Tower also increased. Gradually, everyone stopped mentioning this matter. This time, it was Rong Xiu's first time mentioning it. His goal was self-evident, to secure the position of Chu Luiwe's princess consort. Elder Yu Jingzuan and the others were shocked at first. Then, they looked at each other and frowned. According to His Highness, this Dugu? No, this Shangguan Yu really had an ordinary background? But how could they explain the infinite divine dial's reaction? There had never been such a situation before. Your Highness, Miss Shangguan is an outsider, but she was tested to be ranked 11 and has an extremely powerful bloodline talent. It's really strange. From a certain perspective, I can be considered an outsider, but didn't I also test to be ranked 11? You revered elders have repeatedly brought up this point. Could it be that you also have the same attitude towards this lord's identity? Rong Xiu interrupted Elder Yu Jingzuan's words and said calmly. I wouldn't dare. Elder Yu Jingzuan's heart skipped a beat, and he immediately denied it. Even if that was what they were thinking, how could they say it out loud? Besides, Rong Xiu, an outsider, had the best bloodline talent of the Yuntian Tower in the past thousands of years. They had no choice but to accept this. 36 revered Elder Ming smiled and said, "Little Yu, from today onwards, you are the Holy Sun's princess consort." Honored Elder Yu Jing wanted to say something but hesitated. Honored Elder Qing Chen gave him a meaningful glance. 36 revered Elder Ming had a noble status and was the most senior among the revered elders. Even if revered Elder Tong Chuan was here, he would have to give him some face. What about the others? As soon as he opened his mouth, the people around him were left with no room for rebuttal. They had made it clear that they were going to do this today. Whoever disagreed would be publicly going against the saint and 36 revered Elder Ming. He really couldn't act rashly. Elder Yu Jingzuan took a deep breath and swallowed the rest of his words. Elder Pure Dust was able to control his expression quite well. He bowed slightly. "Greetings, Your Highness." Seeing that he was already like this, honored Elder Yu Jing and honored Elder Shirkayan could only follow. "Greetings, Your Highness." The people around them were still a little stunned. It's settled just like that? Even the revered elders have publicly acknowledged this person's identity? Then, "Congratulations to His Highness and Your Highness." A voice suddenly came from the quiet crowd. It was Lin Qifei who took a step forward and bowed first. This voice finally caused everyone to react. Almost everyone spoke in unison and bowed respectfully. "Congratulations to His Highness and Your Highness." Chu Luiyue looked at Rong Xiu. Just like that, it's settled? It seemed a little too simple. Rong Xiu raised his sword-like eyebrows slightly, chuckled softly, and suddenly held her hand. Chu Luiyue wore an ancient universe ring on her hand. He gently brushed his fingertips over it. The upper layers suddenly faded, and a dazzling golden light shone brightly. Only then did Chu Luiyue see that the Yuntian Tower's totem was carved on the ring. She was slightly stunned and suddenly understood something. The holy ring? 36 revered Elder Ming stood nearby and saw the ring on her hand at a glance. He couldn't help but exclaim in surprise. When the crowd heard this, they all revealed a look of shock. The holy ring was actually on her hand? Rong Xiu explained. The holy ring is the status symbol of the Yuntian Tower's holy sun. It is also a keepsake given to the concubines of the past. Chu Luiyue was stunned. "So, you gave it to me so early?" Rong Xiu chuckled softly. His eyes were gentle, but there was a noble and domineering aura that couldn't be disobeyed. "It's yours anyway. Why should it be early or late?" Jiang Ji1 turned and left. Jiang Hetian quickly chased after her. "Yuan? Yuan." After a few steps, he suddenly stopped and looked back at Rong Xiu and Chu Luiyue. His expression was extremely complicated. It seemed like he was angry, but also seemed to be resentful. "His Highness treats Miss Shangguan very well. It turns out that my immortal water tomb is not worthy of her. I will take my leave now. I hope that the two of you will also be treated well by the Patriarch in the future. Grow old together." Who is he using the Patriarch to threaten? Rong Xiu's lips curved up into an elegant smile. "Patriarch Jiang, you don't have to worry about it. Thank you for your blessing." Jiang Hetian was so angry that he swung his sleeve and left. The remaining people of the immortal water tomb also hurriedly bowed and left. Many people secretly exchanged glances. The concubine position was taken by Shangguanyu. The immortal water tomb wouldn't let it go so easily, especially since Jiang Ji1 was the Patriarch's favorite concubine candidate. There would be more trouble in the future. However, Rong Xiu didn't seem to care about this. He glanced at the sky. "It's getting late. Everyone should disperse. The wedding day will be decided later. I hope that everyone will come again at that time." After speaking, he looked at Chu Luiyue. It's been a long journey. Do you want to rest now?" Chu Luiyue paused and smiled. But I haven't seen Your Highness for a long time. I miss you. I wonder if Your Highness has the time to catch up with me?" Rong Xiu's eyebrows twitched slightly. "Everything is up to you." Sacrificial God Temple. The Holy Sun's bedroom. Yan Qing and Umo were guarding outside the main hall. After a day and night of work, the two of them were actually very tired, but they didn't feel sleepy at all. Instead, they were especially alert and focused on guarding. From time to time, they would glance inside, afraid that something would happen. Even though he couldn't see or hear anything from where he was standing, he couldn't see or hear anything. After waiting for a while, Umo finally couldn't help but poke Yan Qing and ask in a low voice, "Hey, it's been so long. Why hasn't there been any movement inside?" He originally thought that the concubine would at least make a scene with His Highness. After being kept in the dark for so long, who wouldn't be angry? Could it be that the concubine has finally been moved by His Highness's good intentions? So, Yan Qing was speechless and looked at him in disdain. "If you don't need your brain, you can donate it." Umo was immediately unhappy. "Hey, why are you scolding me? Aren't I just thinking for His Highness and the concubine?" Yan Qing turned around to take a look. "You should eat more vegetarian food and pray to Buddha to accumulate merit for your master." Chapter 1090. Inside the room, Chu Luiwei and Rong Xiu sat facing each other. It was so quiet that even the air seemed to have frozen. There was only a subtle flow of air flowing back and forth between the two of them. Both of them had been silent since they came in. Chu Luiwei crossed her arms and looked up and down at the incomparably noble His Highness, the Holy Sun. Rong Xiu, on the other hand, was holding a cup of tea in one hand, allowing the newly appointed princess consort to repeatedly examine him. In comparison, he was actually more at ease. After a while, Chu Luiwei finally moved forward and put her hands on the table. Her beautiful eyes were half squinted, with a hint of danger. "Your Highness, at this time, you still have the leisure to be so elegant? Drink tea?" Rong Xiu took a sip of tea and slowly looked up. His eyes were full of ease. There was a hint of a smile in the corner of his eyes. "After going through so much trouble to choose my favorite princess consort, I have already restrained myself by not celebrating for 3 days and 3 nights. Can't I have a cup of tea and be happy?" Chu Luiwei was speechless. Whether this man was in white or black, Prince Li or the Holy Sun, they were all black-hearted. His skin was really thicker than the city walls. For a moment, Chu Luiwei didn't know how to refute him. She took a deep breath and kept saying in her heart, "After all, he's my man. I can't kill him, I can't kill him." She leaned back in her chair again and sneered. "Your Highness, if I didn't come here myself this time, how long were you planning to hide your identity?" Rong Xiu thought about it carefully and still chose to defend himself. "Previously, when we were in Tianling, I actually mentioned it to you, but I didn't go into detail. It shouldn't be considered deliberately hiding it, right? It would have been better if he didn't mention this, but once he did, Chu Luiwei was furious. That counts as mentioning it? You didn't say that your mother's clan was actually a first-rate clan in the Divine Ruins world, Yuntian Tower. This wasn't an ordinary family background, yet he didn't mention it from the beginning to the end." Rong Xiu pondered for a moment, but his tone and expression were much more serious. "At that time, it wasn't very appropriate to tell you these things. Furthermore, there were still some minor issues at the Yuntian Tower that had yet to be resolved. So I originally planned to wait for you to break through to the 9th stage before telling you in detail. I didn't expect." He smiled, and in an instant, all the colors in the world were taken away. His eyes were deep, as if they could make people unconsciously sink into them, unable to extricate themselves. "It's just that I didn't expect you to break through so quickly, and, furthermore, even the totem had awakened. This was much faster than he had expected. It should have been when she broke through to the 7th rank warrior and went through the Ascension Tribulation, which triggered all these." Chu Luiwei didn't say anything. In fact, from everything that had happened today, she could also see that Rong Xiu's situation at the Yuntian Tower was indeed somewhat dangerous. Not to mention those people at the Immortal Water Tomb, just those few revered elders didn't seem to be on his side. If it weren't for 36 revered Elder Ming who could restrain them, she was afraid. Then let's forget about this matter for now. Now, let me ask you something else. You must answer honestly." Chu Luiwei said firmly. Rong Xiu fumbled with the teacup, the bitter and slightly spicy taste of ginger tea still lingering between his lips and teeth. He nodded. Chu Luiyue was silent for a moment and unconsciously sat up straight. She looked into the eyes of the man opposite her and said word by word, "Who exactly am I?" Digression, continue at 6 p.m. Chapter 1091. There was complete silence. Rong Xiu paused for a moment and looked up at Chu Luiyue. "You're Shangguan Yu, and also Chu Luiyue." Chu Luiyue frowned. "You know that's not what I'm asking." "But these two are indeed your identities." Rong Xiu replied, "You should be the one who knows who you are the best." Chu Luiyue felt suffocated. She paused. "Rong Xiu, I've already remembered some things. You were the one who played chess with me in the octagonal pavilion. You were the one who deliberately drank my ginger tea. You were also the one who made a lifelong promise with me." Chu Luiyue looked at him. Every time she said a word, the scene of the past would appear in her mind. Most of it was fragmented and blurry, but these few fragments were very clear. "You knew that I lost part of my memory a long time ago, but you never took the initiative to mention it to me. And in the past that disappeared, the only thing I remember was you. This was enough to explain too many things. We clearly knew each other a long time ago. I even said that I was going to go back and announce our marriage to Imperial Father. But what happened after that?" She didn't remember where they first met, and she didn't know what happened after that promise. After she returned to the Tianling dynasty, she was actually engaged to Jianghu, and so many things happened after that. She used to think that she liked Jianghu, but later she met Rong Xiu. She realized that she didn't like him. At most, she didn't hate him based on various factors. When she learned that Jianghu and Shangguan Wan had teamed up, she was more angry and heartbroken at being betrayed by someone she trusted. Thinking about it carefully, she didn't seem to care that much about the fact that they were secretly together. It was just that at that time, she was hurt by a traitor and was momentarily blinded by anger. All she thought about was revenge. She hadn't noticed it before, but now that she recalled some things, she found a lot of things wrong. Since she and Rong Xiu were already together, and even promised to go back and tell Imperial Father about this matter, it was impossible for her to be engaged to other people. Did something happen after she returned to Tianling? Rong Xiu looked at her with a deep gaze and sighed. It was as if he was happy, but at the same time, it was as if he was feeling pity for her. "So you've remembered so much. No wonder the totem." He was silent for a while. Then, as if he had made an important decision, he said, "We have indeed known each other since 3 years ago." Chu Luiyue's heart skipped a beat. 3 years ago. It had been a year and a half since her rebirth, and 2.5 years since her death. If they had met 3 years ago, in other words, they knew each other at least half a year before she died? As if he had guessed what Chu Luiyue was thinking, Rong Xiu smiled and shook his head. "Actually, it's a little longer than you think. Later, you said you wanted to go back, so we separated. But a few months after that, something happened to you. You know what happened after that?" The blood in Chu Luiyue's eardrums was gurgling, and it hurt. It was as if an invisible hand had suddenly clenched her heart, making it difficult for her to breathe. Her throat was tight as she asked with difficulty, "So, my rebirth in Empire Yaochen is also related to you?" She was lucky to be reborn in Chu Luiyue's body in Empire Yaochen. Moreover, she happened to meet Rong Xiu that day. There were too many coincidences, so it was impossible for people to doubt it. Rong Xiu rubbed his finger gently on the teacup when he heard this. The room was silent. Every minute and every second was incomparably torturous. Just when Chu Luiyue thought that Rong Xiu wouldn't answer, he finally spoke. "Yes. I purposely waited there for your return." "Why haven't the two of them come out yet? I don't know what they are talking about. They actually chatted for so long?" 36 respected Elder Ming came to the sacrificial god hall after dealing with some trivial matters after the concubine selection ceremony. He saw Yan Qing and Yu Mo guarding the door from afar, and he couldn't help but ask curiously. "Greetings to 36 respected Elder Ming." The two of them bowed respectfully. 36 respected Elder Ming waved his hand and raised his chin, unable to hide the curiosity in his eyes. "How is it? This? Respected elder, you also know that there are Xian formations and barriers around the sacrificial god hall. If His Highness doesn't want us to hear or see it, he naturally has a way. We also don't know what's going on inside. Umo answered carefully as he looked at the sky that was already turning white. Most of the night had passed, and the sky was already bright. But since the person inside didn't come out, they didn't dare to disturb her. Princess Consort has been rushing all the way here. It must be very tiring. She might be resting inside. 36 Respected Elder Ming stroked his beard and was very understanding. Glancing from the corner of his eyes, his movements suddenly paused. The child who came with Princess Consort? He pointed to a small purple figure sitting on a jade stool and asked. He's been here since yesterday until now. Speaking of this child, Umo and Yanqing also had a headache. Yesterday, when His Highness and Princess Consort returned, this child had been by Princess Consort's side. After that, Princess Consort said that she wanted to have a private chat with His Highness, so she left this child behind. Originally, they had specially arranged a room for him to rest, but no matter how they persuaded him, he was indifferent and just sat there. They thought that it wasn't a big deal for a child to be a little stubborn. At most, they would wait for him to fall asleep before sending him into the room. Who knew that he actually maintained that position and waited until now? Strange. 36 Respected Elder Ming narrowed his eyes slightly. That child didn't look like an ordinary child. Moreover, although there weren't any fluctuations of force on his body, he had an inexplicable aura that made people feel reverence. I'm afraid he's not ordinary, 36 Respected Elder Ming thought for a while and said, just let him do whatever he wants. He turned back to look at the tightly shut door. Forget it, I'll come back later. After saying that, he turned around and planned to leave. However, just as he took a few steps, the sound of the door opening came from behind him. Creak. 36 Respected Elder Ming, why are you looking for I? Rong Xiu's low and slightly hoarse voice sounded. Greetings, Your Highness. Yanqing and Umo hurriedly bowed. 36 Respected Elder Ming looked back. Rong Xiu was still wearing the same black clothes from yesterday. There were faint dark circles under his eyes, as if he hadn't slept for the entire night. 36 Respected Elder Ming looked inside, but unfortunately he didn't see anything. How's Princess Consort? Rong Xiu smiled faintly. She's already asleep. She had been constantly on the move during this period of time, and her memory was gradually recovering. She indeed needed a good rest. That's good, 36 Respected Elder Ming nodded comfortingly. Immediately, his expression became more serious as he asked in a deep voice. Your Highness, have you heard about what happened at the academy? Chapter 1092. Rong Xiu nodded. Yesterday, Jianghu told I some things. 36 Respected Elder Ming frowned. Your Highness, what plans do you have? Rong Xiu thought for a moment and said, let's settle the matters here first. There's no rush for anything else. 36 Respected Elder Ming knew that he was talking about Chu Liwei. The position of the Princess Consort has been decided. Your Highness, do you want to immediately? Rong Xiu shook his head. I might need to wait for a while. I know what to do. 36 Respected Elder Ming need not worry. 36 Respected Elder Ming wanted to persuade him again, but seeing Rong Xiu's calm and determined expression, he did not continue. I'll deal with it for now. It won't be too late to go after Your Highness has chosen a time. Rong Xiu cupped his hands and said seriously, I'll have to trouble you. Hey, don't you have enough trouble for me? I don't need you this time. 36 Respected Elder Ming chuckled. Let her have a good rest in these few days, or let her walk around Yuntian Tower and familiarize herself with it. It was not easy to wait for them to come. He had to give them some time alone. After saying that, 36 Respected Elder Ming waved his hand and turned to leave. However, after taking 2 steps, he suddenly stopped and walked back to a position a few steps away from Rong Xiu. He lowered his voice and asked curiously and mysteriously, Oh right, when that girl was tested for her bloodline talent, did you see the totem on it clearly? Rong Xiu's eyes flickered, and then he shook his head. 36 respected Elder Ming immediately looked regretful. That's a pity. I didn't see it clearly at that time. I thought you could see it. He was very clear about Chu Liyue's background. It was also because of this that he was curious about why she had such a shocking bloodline talent in her body. Perhaps there was some secret hidden in this that even she didn't know about. If he could see the totem clearly, he might be able to follow the clues and find the answer. Unfortunately, then this old man will take his leave first. 36 respected Elder Ming glanced into the room again. Although she is now the rightful princess consort, there may be trouble in the future. Must take good care of her. Rong Xiu nodded. His tone was calm but firm. Don't worry, with me around, I won't let her suffer any more grievances. After the consort selection ceremony, Chu Liyue was chosen as a consort, which made many women envious and jealous. However, they also understood that even though this match was specially prepared by Rong Xiu for Chu Liyue, she had indeed won this position with her own strength. Even if they were to do it again, the one who would win would still be her. Therefore, after the matter was over, most of the women were disappointed, but they quickly got over it. However, among them, there were naturally some who were stubborn and couldn't get out of it. Jianghu was like that. When she saw that Chu Liyue already had the holy ring on her hand, she finally couldn't bear it anymore and left the scene. At that moment, she understood that everything had nothing to do with her from the beginning to the end. After all these years, she was just imagining things. In the end, she didn't get anything. Instead, she became a laughingstock. She would become a princess consort. This was something that everyone had tacitly agreed upon for many years. It was obvious how those people would look at her now. After returning to the Immortal Water Mausoleum that night, Jiang Jiwan was bedridden and had a high fever. This made Jiang Hetian's heart ache even more. He wanted nothing more than to kill those two people to vent the hatred in his heart. Jiang Hetian sat by the bed and comforted her. Xin, it's not worth it to be so sad over them. There will naturally be better men to match you in the future. Let's not talk about other things. Just in the academy alone, who knows how many people like you? They might not be any worse than Rong Xiu. Jiang Jiwan smiled bitterly. Although that was the case, she had liked Rong Xiu for a long time. Moreover, for so many years, she had always thought that she would be with him and become his princess consort. She had even fantasized about how the wedding ceremony would be held many times. But now, she had suddenly lost everything. How could she recover in such a short period of time? However, she still nodded reluctantly. I know. After I recover, I will return to the academy directly. Jiang Hetian patted her hand, a ruthless look flashing across his eyes. Don't worry. This time, Rong Xiu made the Immortal Water Mausoleum lose face. I will remember this. In the future, I will definitely make him pay 100-fold. After a few more words, 36 respected Elder Ming left quickly. After his figure completely disappeared, Rong Xiu turned his gaze slightly and looked at Dugamabao, who was sitting on a jade stool not far away. He strode over with his long legs and sat directly opposite him. You've been sitting here for an entire night. You should go in and rest. Rong Xiu's lips did not move. He only used his mind to convey his thoughts. At this level, many things were much more convenient. Only then did Dugamabao turn his head and look at him coldly. Are you done? Rong Xiu smiled faintly. I've said everything that needs to be said. A faint light flashed across Dugamabao's demonic purple eyes. He snorted lightly. So you've only said a part of it. What's the difference between that and not saying anything? According to Rong Xiu's character, if he was really willing to tell everything, he would have done so long ago. Why would he drag it out until now? It was obvious that he was just being picky with his words. As for how much that girl recalled and when she would be able to remember everything, it was still unknown. Rong Xiu did not deny it. In the end, I've answered some of her doubts and let her breathe a sigh of relief. Otherwise, she wouldn't be able to sleep peacefully now. It was not that he did not want to tell her all the facts, but now was not the best time. You know that even if I tell her everything now, it will only add to her worries. Dugamabao did not reply. Of course, he knew what Rong Xiu meant. If he did not think so, he would not have needed to look for Rong Xiu. He would have told Chu Luiwei everything on the way here. Rong Xiu paused and said, "Everything will be clear when she breaks through to the god level again." Chapter 1093. Chu Luiwei had a very long dream. In the dream, she was in a strange place. She met a group of strange people and did many strange things. The strangest thing was that she actually dreamed that she was trying to break through to the god realm. Boom! A heavenly tribulation descended. Intense pain spread throughout her body. Chu Luiwei suddenly opened her eyes and woke up. She panted, her heart thumped, and boiling blood flowed through her limbs and bones. The pain seemed to still be lingering. Chu Luiwei subconsciously looked at her surroundings. She was lying on the bed, covered with a cloud brocade quilt, unharmed. However, the feeling of being enveloped by the heavenly tribulation in her dream was too realistic, as if she had really experienced it before. Chu Luiwei took a deep breath, and a familiar faint fragrance filled the air. It was Rong Xiu's aura. Right? She was now in Rong Xiu's bedroom in the sacrificial god temple. Last night, the two of them talked a lot about the part of her memories that she had lost, about their past. They had indeed known each other for a long time, but it was not in Yaochen or Tianling, but in the Divine Ruins world. Rong Xiu made it clear that the first time they met, as well as the things that happened afterward, actually happened in the Divine Ruins. He only found out later that she was not from the Divine Ruins world, but from the Tianling dynasty. And after that, something happened to her. Later, Rong Xiu felt that something was wrong. He tried his best to find a way to let her reincarnate into Chu Luiwei's body and wait for her to wake up. However, because she was too decisive before she died and chose to die with the Tianjing Yuan meridian, her soul was scattered after she died, and he could only find a part of it. As a result, her soul was incomplete and she lost a part of her memories. Unfortunately, it was the part of the memory between them. Chu Luiwei rubbed the space between her eyebrows. After a night of rest, she finally regained her energy. After spending some time to sort out yesterday's events, she seemed to have sobered up a lot, but she also had a lot of new questions. This was because she had no idea how she had managed to get to the Divine Ruins world from Tianling. Rong Xiu didn't seem to be very clear about this part, because not long after he found out that she came from Tianling, she went back and he didn't have time to ask. Chu Luiwei walked to the table and poured himself a cup of tea. Smoke lingered in the air, and the air was steaming. It seemed to be freshly brewed. Chu Luiwei's movements paused as a deep thought flashed through his eyes. In fact, last night, she had tried to ask Rong Xiu if he knew anything about the Black Pyramid. Rong Xiu seemed to know nothing about this. Chu Luiwei had always suspected that the black-clothed man was Rong Xiu, but now she was a little shaken. On one hand, the black-clothed man had sealed a part of her soul. If Rong Xiu was really him, then he should be busy helping her find a complete soul to recover her memories. On the other hand, in the fragmented memories she recalled, there were two figures that were very clear. One was Rong Xiu, and the other was the black-clothed man. But from what she knew, Rong Xiu and him were indeed two different people. And Rong Xiu didn't seem to know much about that person. As for the truth, perhaps she would have to wait until she remembered everything before she could understand. Thinking of this, Chu Luiwei held her breath and focused. There were already 3 cracks on the Black Pyramid that was quietly floating in her dantian. A golden light faintly seeped out from within. Her fragmented memories should have flowed out from here. It would be great if she could open it. Chu Luiwei gathered her force and prepared to hit it again. Creak! The door suddenly opened. Chu Luiwei paused in her actions and looked up. Rong Xiu walked in. "You're up? Why don't you sleep a little longer?" Chu Luiwei nodded. "I've rested enough." Sensing the force surging in her body, Rong Xiu's eyebrows twitched slightly. "What were you thinking about just now?" "I was thinking about how to recover my past memories," Chu Luiwei said honestly. Rong Xiu felt an inexplicable pain in a certain part of his body. He clenched his fist and coughed. "This matter can't be rushed. Anyway, I've already remembered some of it, and I'll naturally remember it in the future." Chu Luiwei nodded. That was all she could do now. "Your priority now is to improve your cultivation as soon as possible." A cold and cute voice suddenly came from the door. Chu Luiyue looked over and saw a purple figure. Debao, you're here too? Dugu Mabao's face instantly darkened. Rong Xiu kindly reminded her. We came in together. Unfortunately, because of her small body, she was completely blocked by Rong Xiu's figure in front of her, so Chu Luiyue did not see her. Chu Luiyue was speechless. Dugu Mabao said word by word. From today onwards, you'll play chess with me for 4 hours every day. No! Chu Luiyue screamed and hugged her head in pain. 4 hours was not considered long for a chess game. After all, sometimes a chess game could drag on for even longer. However, she was playing chess with Dugu Mabao. Chu Luiyue recalled the night when she was dominated by Dugu Mabao's terrifying chess skills. Until now, she had not been able to last more than 15 minutes. Every time, she would be killed after a short while. Most importantly, it was the most miserable kind. For hours. She did not know what kind of torture she would be subjected to. In addition, for 2 hours every day, the puppet I made will spar with you. Dugu Mabao narrowed its eyes. Its originally watery and devilish eyes were now flashing with a murderous glint. Since you're still at the beginner stage of the 7th stage, I'll start with the more basic ones. Let's start with the beginner stage of the 8th stage. Chu Luiyue's eyes twitched. Debao, do you have some misunderstanding about the beginner stage of the 7th stage? Chu Luiyue's eyes twitched and she struggled to ask. I'm at the beginner stage of the 7th stage and you want me to spar with the beginner stage of the 8th stage, isn't this a little? Then let's start with the intermediate stage of the 8th stage. We'll do as you said at the beginning. Chu Luiyue's strong desire to live made her react quickly. Based on her understanding of Dugu Mabao, he would definitely do what he said. As long as she was still alive, he would not go easy on her. Dugu Mabao glanced at her as if he had seen through her thoughts and said directly, I'll only give you 10 days. After 10 days, you'll be at the intermediate stage of the 8th stage. Chu Luiyue. Debao, I was wrong. This is the Yuntian Tower. The density of the force of heaven and earth is enough to speed up your cultivation by several times. Moreover, you've recovered your Tianjing Yuan meridian, so it should be even more so. Dugu Mabao frowned as he spoke, and his eyes were filled with disdain. You've been at the beginner stage of the 7th stage for too long. Chu Luiyue? Chapter 1094. How does it feel to have a powerful senior personally and carefully teaching you? Chu Luiyue finally understood. It was simply purgatory on earth. She used to think that she was diligent enough in her cultivation, but after meeting Dugu Mabao, she knew that she was wrong. According to him, the weak should have the self-awareness of the weak. Anyway, the consort selection ceremony was over, and the matters here had come to an end for the time being. It was time to cultivate properly. Chu Luiyue tried to defend herself. Actually, I shouldn't be that bad, right? Yesterday, I even measured 11 on the infinite divine dial. Dugu Mabao seemed unmoved and looked up lazily. So what? Aren't you still a mere rank 7 warrior? Chu Luiyue felt that she had been dealt a heavy blow again. Suddenly, she thought of something and looked up at the 2 people in front of her. By the way, there's something I forgot to ask before. Your Highness' chessboard seems to be similar to Debao's? Dugu Mabao and Rong Xiu both fell silent. After a moment, Dugu Mabao said, Pack up first, I'll come back in 15 minutes. With that, he put his hands behind his back and walked away with his head held high. But for some reason, Chu Luiyue felt that his back view was inexplicably guilty. She glanced at Rong Xiu from the corner of her eye. Rong Xiu said warmly, Senior is powerful, and it's a rare opportunity to cultivate with him. You must cherish it. I won't disturb you. With that, he also planned to turn around and leave. Wait. Chu Luiyue suddenly called out to him. Have the people of the various tribes left? Rong Xiu turned around. Some have already left, but a small number are still here. As if guessing what she wanted to ask, Rong Xiu added, The people of Cave Heaven Cliff are still here. Chu Luiyue was relieved. That's good. I promised to treat Lin Qifei's illness. The Lin family head has treated me well, so I can't go back on my word. She looked at Rong Xiu. I wonder if you can ask them to stay here for a few days and let them leave after Lin Jifei's body recovers? Rong Xiu raised his eyebrows slightly. Actually, there are a few celestial physicians in the Yuntian Tower, and they are quite strong. Chu Luiyue thought for a moment and shook his head. Since we've already agreed to it, it's naturally not good to go back on our words. Moreover, the main problem with his body had already been solved. He only needed to recuperate for a few more days. It wouldn't take much effort. Rong Xiu paused and suddenly took a step forward. He pinched her chin with one hand and leaned over to kiss her. She was sitting while he was standing, so there was a height difference. Suddenly bending down like this, a strong sense of oppression attacked. Before Chu Luiyue could react, she was surrounded by the familiar cold fragrance on his body. The next moment, her lips were slightly cold, but quickly turned hot. Chu Luiyue subconsciously reached out and hooked her arms around his neck. She tilted her head slightly and pushed herself forward. Rong Xiu held her waist with one hand, as if he wanted to crush her and integrate her into his body. Her waist was thin and soft, and her body was warm and soft. Chu Luiyue snorted softly. Her voice was gentle and lingering. Rong Xiu's hands suddenly tightened. Then Chu Luiyue leaned over to his ear. She could even see the tips of his crimson ears. Her breath was like orchids as she whispered softly in his ear. Your Highness is most adorable when you're weak and delicate. No man would be able to remain calm after hearing this. Not to mention the current situation. However, just as Rong Xiu was about to move, Chu Luiyue suddenly broke away from his embrace and patted his shoulder lightly. Alright, it's getting late. Your Highness, I won't send you off. With that, she got up to leave. Rong Xiu hugged her from behind. Chu Luiyue was now considered tall and slender among women, but compared to Rong Xiu, she was still small. His iron arms wrapped around her, easily trapping her tightly in his embrace, not leaving a single gap between them. Rong Xiu rested his chin on her shoulder. His voice was hoarse and restrained. You did it on purpose. Chu Luiyue snorted softly. It's fine as long as your Highness understands. Rong Xiu paused for a while before saying regretfully, we should have gotten married earlier. Chu Luiyue raised her eyebrows and turned to look at him. Why don't your Highness tell me more about our past? Rong Xiu suddenly laughed softly. Immediately after, he tapped her lips and lowered his voice. Pillow talk shouldn't be like this. His voice was low and pleasant, with a hint of hoarseness. Chu Luiyue's ears heated up. After barely managing to win back half of the game, Rong Xiu finally stopped. He carefully reminded her of some things before leaving. In the blink of an eye, only Chu Luiyue was left in the room. She looked back at the door, narrowed her eyes, and snorted softly. She could hide now, but she couldn't hide forever. She would eventually find out what she needed to know. Not long after Chu Luiyue tidied up, Dugu Mabao came in again according to the previous agreement. At this time, Chu Luiyue was already sitting at the chess table by the window, obviously waiting for him. Seeing him come in, Chu Luiyue smiled and said, "Dabao, sit." Dugu Mabao calmly walked over and sat opposite her. "Let's begin," Chu Luiyue said. Dugu Mabao's sleeves moved slightly. He looked up at her, seemingly hesitant. Chu Luiyue said seriously, "I promise I won't ask about those things again." Dugu Mabao waved his chubby hand. Several rays of light flew out and instantly intertwined between the two of them to form a chessboard. "It's not that I can't tell you." Dugu Mabao placed a piece first and said in a vague manner, "The faster you break through, the stronger you become, and the more you will know." Chu Luiyue nodded and placed a piece as well. "I know." After Rong Xiu came out of the bedroom, he went straight to the study. It had only been a day, but there were many booklets on the table. It was obvious that most of them were related to Chu Luiyue being chosen as the princess consort. Of course, because Chu Luiyue was chosen openly, they did not have any serious reasons to refute, except for her birth. Although Chu Luiyue's level 11 on the infinite divine dial was already tested, in the eyes of some people, this was far from enough. Rong Xiu casually opened the booklets and dismissed them all. Clearly, he did not intend to pay attention to them. Since his title was already confirmed, no matter what they did, they would not cause any trouble. When Rong Xiu finished dealing with the last booklet, a strong aura suddenly came from the outside at high speed. Rong Xiu's eyes flickered as he looked up. The door of the study was wide open. The next moment, a figure appeared at the door. It was Elder Tong Chuan. Rong Xiu smiled and said casually, "Elder Tong Chuan, why are you back so soon?" Elder Tong Chuan's face was filled with unconcealable anger. He strode in and said angrily, "So your highness purposely sent me away to choose that unknown Shangguan Yu as the princess consort?" Chapter 1095. The smile on Rong Xiu's face faded and a layer of frost covered his eyes. "Respected Elder Tongchuan, please watch your words. Her is now the princess consort of Yuntian Tower and you cannot insult her so casually." Insult? Respected Elder Tongchuan also had a stomach full of anger. Only the heavens knew how angry he was when he heard this news and understood the cause and effect of this matter. Is there anything wrong with this old man's words? Isn't her origin unknown? On the surface, she says that she is an outsider, but she clearly has an extremely tyrannical bloodline talent in her body. Until now, no one knows what her identity is. In addition, she has also contracted with 2 spiritual beasts. This does not conform to common sense. If your highness said that there is nothing fishy about her, would you believe it yourself? In any case, there are too many suspicious points about this woman and she really cannot bear the responsibility of being the princess consort. Rong Xiu's expression was indifferent as he leaned back on the chair and crossed his arms in front of him. "Respected Elder Tongchuan, you came back today just to criticize I and the princess consort? If not for your highness's improper actions, this old man would not have to do this." Respected Elder Tongchuan's face was full of anger. "Not only this old man, your highness had also sent the other respected elders out for various reasons. It was all to set up this situation in advance. Isn't that right? Your highness is like this for a woman, it really makes my heart cold." Actually, this matter was very simple. At the start, Rong Xiu had accepted the Ming tribe's opinion and agreed to hold the princess consort selection ceremony and had requested for all the tribes to gather. To anyone who heard this, they would think that he was going to hold a proper princess consort selection. According to this process, the final result should be Immortal Water Tomb's Jianghu. If he was willing, he could also choose a concubine and so on. Thus, including respected Elder Tongchuan and the rest, no one thought too much about it. Even when the respected elders were sent out before the princess consort selection ceremony, they also did not think about it. Who would have thought that Rong Xiu had actually decided to choose that Shangguan Yu from the start? Immortal Water Tomb is the head of the 28 tribes and has been loyal to the Yuntian Tower for thousands of years. Eldest Miss Jiang is deeply loved by the tribe leader and is already the most suitable candidate for the princess consort. Your highness has never thought that your actions will undoubtedly cause the Immortal Water Tomb's reputation. Eldest Miss Jiang also, this is I's princess consort selection, not you. Rong Xiu interrupted him in a seemingly smiling manner, but there was no happiness in his eyes. In the end, the Tomb of Immortal Water is only one of the 28 tribes. It should comply with all of Yuntiang's decisions. Princess consort's princess consort, eyes of her. Respected Elder Tongchuan. Even the patriarch has never admitted in public that he wants to choose Jiang Ziyuan as his princess consort. What, if I don't choose her, will the Immortal Water Tomb rebel? Rong Xiu's every word was loud and clear, and it was majestic. When he said the last word, his eyes were filled with coldness. Furthermore, respected Elder Tongchuan, for you to barge into I's study and question I, doesn't it seem inappropriate? Tongchuan's heart trembled. He was too angry and had almost lost his mind. That was why he barged in without a care. He had almost forgotten that the Rong Xiu of today was no longer the youth who could be bullied by anyone. Respected Elder Tongchuan took a deep breath and continued. If your highness insists on doing things your own way, then there's nothing we can do. This news will spread very quickly. If the Academy insists on removing Shangguan Yu's princess consort, your highness, please be prepared. Digression, a February with a stomachache until 1 in the morning, 6 in the evening. Chapter 1096. Elder Tong Chuan, you don't have to worry about that. Rong Xiu chuckled. If you are really upset about this, why don't you spend some time comforting Lord Jiang and Lady Jiang at the Immortal Water Mausoleum? After all, you have always been on good terms with them. Tong Chuan's heart skipped a beat as he panicked. He quickly glanced at Rong Xiu. Did Rong Xiu know something? However, there was only a faint smile on Rong Xiu's elegant and devilish face. His eyes were deep, and nothing could be seen. The Son of God was getting more and more ruthless, and his thoughts were getting more and more unpredictable. Elder Tong Chuan felt troubled. He took a deep breath and gave himself a way out. That won't be necessary. I am the elder of Yuntian Tower. I should keep my distance from the other tribes. How can I do such a thing? I am here today for the sake of His Highness and the entire Yuntian Tower. If I have offended you, I hope His Highness can forgive me. Rong Xiu didn't seem to mind. He smiled and nodded. Of course, Lord Tong Chuan has been loyal to the Yuntian Tower for many years. How can I be unhappy with you over such a small matter? That's good, Tong Chuan's voice became softer. For some reason, Rong Xiu looked normal, but he was getting more and more agitated. After a few more words, he hurriedly left. Looking at his back, Rong Xiu narrowed his eyes and curled his lips in disappointment. True, unable to withstand a single blow, he had only vaguely mentioned it, yet he was already so flustered. It was rare to be able to be arrogant in the Yuntian Tower for so many years. Thinking about the academy, Rong Xiu's eyes darkened. He picked up his pen and wrote a letter. Chu Luiwei was unaware of the infighting in the outside world. She was playing chess with Dugumabao. Dugumabao waved his finger and placed a piece on the chessboard. Chu Luiwei thought. Bam! The chessboard disappeared. Chu Luiwei rubbed her face. I lost again. Dugumabao's expression was calm. You've improved a little, but it's still not enough. Chu Luiwei gave him a sad look. An extra 5 steps is considered an improvement? In these 4 hours, she couldn't even remember how many times she had lost. And after all this was over, her only improvement was that she could take 5 more pitiful steps. Moreover, it was only that one time. Rong Xiu should have played chess with you before, right? How many steps can you take under your hands? Chu Luiwei. Dugumabao looked up slightly and glanced at her. Can't. Chu Luiwei was speechless. Was there a need to ask? Of course, she knew that Dugumabao was stronger than her. Even though Dugumabao defeated her by half a move in the consort selection ceremony, she knew that he hadn't shown his true strength. Thinking about how she hadn't won against him properly even once, Chu Luiwei felt very unhappy. Then let's continue. Dugumabao shook his head. It's time to practice something else. If you want to continue, you can wait until tomorrow. Chu Luiwei suddenly remembered that Dugumabao had asked her to set aside 4 hours to practice with the puppet he made. She looked around. It doesn't seem appropriate here, does it? Dugumabao jumped down and walked outside. The sacrificial god temple is huge. Where can't we practice? After Chu Luiwei came out, she realized that she was worrying too much. Dugumabao seemed to have made arrangements, and Yan Qing led them to the training field at the back of the temple. On the way, Chu Luiwei didn't see anyone else other than those soldiers in black armor. She didn't feel it when she came up last night, but now, she realized that the sacrificial god temple's security was extremely strict. Those who were chosen to stay here were naturally very strong and well-trained soldiers. Chu Luiwei noticed that most of them had the smell of blood on them. Obviously, these were people who had experienced life and death battles. Chu Luiwei's understanding of the Yuntian Tower increased. The first-rate clan of the Divine Ruins was indeed not to be underestimated. The training field covered a large area, and the ground was paved with black jade. A huge Yuntian Tower totem could be vaguely seen in the middle. Strangely, there was no one guarding here. Other than the 3 of them, there was no one else. It was even more deserted than outside. Yan Qing explained, Princess Consort, this is His Highness martial arts training ground. Usually, only His Highness comes here. Without His Highness's permission, no one else is allowed to enter. Chu Luiwen nodded in understanding. And it was specially used. His Highness has already ordered that you two can come and go as you please. If you need anything, just tell me. Chu Luiwen raised her eyebrows and teased, only here? Can we get out of the sacrificial god temple? Yan Qing's iceberg face cracked for a moment, but soon returned to normal. You are wearing the holy ring on your hand, and now your status in the Yuntian Tower is almost the same as the Holy Sun. Naturally, you can go wherever you want. This sounded good. You can go down first. Dugamabao said. These words were directed at Yan Qing. Yan Qing bowed respectfully, yes. This subordinate is waiting outside. After saying that, she quickly retreated without hesitation. Looks like Yan Qing and the rest know you too. Chu Luiwen looked back. Yan Qing had already left, and the door was closed. Dugamabao did not reply and only raised his chin. Now you can go up. Chu Luiwen raised her eyebrows, tipped her toes, and jumped to the center of the training field. Let's begin. Dugamabao waved his wrist, and a purple light flew out. Bang. In the next moment, a tall figure appeared in front of Chu Luiwen. This was a bronze puppet. It was unknown what material was used to make it, but it looked neither gold nor jade. Under the sunlight, it had a faint luster. Chu Luiwen already had experience. She knew that although this puppet looked stiff, it was actually very agile. Other than not being able to use force, it was almost no different from a real person. Swish! A purple light flashed across the puppet's eyes. In the next moment, it took the initiative to attack. It went straight for Chu Luiwen. In an instant, it was in front of him. Chu Luiwen was shocked. So fast. It was indeed an early stage rank 8. The bronze puppet punched out, aiming directly at Chu Luiwen's face. Chu Luiwen raised his arm to block. Bang! A dull sound of collision was heard. A wave of pain came, but it was much better than what Chu Luiwen had expected. Although you are only in early stage rank 7, you have benefited from going through the god's tribulation. Your physical strength and other aspects have been greatly enhanced. Your real strength is actually at the peak of rank 7. Dugamabao's voice was heard. His eyes swept across Chu Luiwen's face. Looks like it won't take 10 days. Let's change it to 5 days. Chapter 1097. Before Chu Luiwen could react, the puppet in front of her was already closing in on her again. It swept its long leg and kicked Chu Luiwen directly. A cold wind blew, and Chu Luiwen immediately dodged. However, the puppet was faster. He kicked her in the waist. Chu Luiwen staggered, but she endured the pain. Taking advantage of the situation, she turned around, grabbed the puppet's ankle, and flung it fiercely. Bam! The tall and heavy puppet fell heavily to the ground. However, it did not feel pain and kicked Chu Luiwen without hesitation. Chu Luiwen made a prompt decision to retreat. The puppet followed closely behind. Chu Luiwen was no match for it now and was almost being chased by it. Hence, she could only use all kinds of nimble methods to fight for a chance for herself. The two of them were entangled in a fight. From time to time, all kinds of muffled sounds of collision could be heard. Dugamabao was at the side of the field, standing with his hands behind his back and watching quietly. There was no expression on her cute little face, only a pair of eyes were fixed on the field. She was being beaten up now so that she would not be beaten up in the future, and she could even beat up others. It would be a lie to say that he did not feel sorry for her. However, this was not the first time something like this had happened anyway. In the end, he still had to let her break through as soon as possible. 4 hours passed by very slowly. When Chu Luiwen finally found an opportunity to find her opponent's loophole and barely restrained him, her body was already covered in wounds. It was obvious that her body was already covered in bruises. Fortunately, Chu Luiwen still had force to use, so her internal organs were not hurt. Dugamabao nodded and recalled the puppet. That's all for today. Chu Luiwen let out a long breath, her legs so weak that she almost fell to the ground. Dugamabao looked at the sky. You can arrange the rest of the time yourself. Then he turned around and left. Debeo, where are you going? Chu Luiwen asked. Dugamabao stopped in his tracks. Cultivate. Chu Luiwei had never expected to hear this word from Dugu Mabao. His strength was unfathomably strong, and it seemed that even 36 respected Elder Ming and the others did not see anything fishy about him. So you also need to cultivate? Chu Luiwei couldn't help but sigh. Dugu Mabao turned back to look at her. He seemed a little embarrassed, but he stopped himself from saying anything. In the end, he left at an even faster speed. Of course, he would continue to cultivate. Otherwise, he would be trapped in this tiny body for the rest of his life. However, he really couldn't bring himself to say such words to Chu Luiwei, so he could only leave without another word. Chu Luiwei rubbed his nose. Well, although Dabao was strong, it was obvious that he was not completely without worries. She rested on the spot for a while, then sat cross-legged, closed her eyes, and adjusted her breathing. At the same time, she kept replaying the scene of her battle with the puppet. This kind of puppet could not use the force of heaven and earth, so its melee combat strength was extremely strong. Whether it was strength, agility, or other aspects, it was stronger than a real cultivator of the same level. And its moves were also extremely ruthless and accurate. Chu Luiwei went through all the details of the fight in her mind and carefully comprehended it. She only opened her eyes after she had completely understood it. It was already afternoon. Chu Luiwei thought for a while, then walked to the door. Yan Qing was waiting. "Greetings, Princess." Chu Luiwei asked. "Where are those people from Heavenly Cave Cliff now?" Lin Tianfeng and the others were still living in the same place as before. Previously, Yan Qing had said that she could let them move to a better place, but Lin Tianfeng had declined. Lin Tianfeng knew very well that all the benefits they enjoyed after coming to Yuntian Tower were actually thanks to Chu Luiwei. She might not mind, but Lin Tianfeng did not want that. If it were not for Lin Qifei's body not yet fully recovered, they might have left long ago. Lin Tianfeng's only request was to be able to see Chu Luiwei again and ask her to help cure Lin Qifei's illness completely. But he was not sure. Although they got along well with Chu Luiwei before, she was now the princess of Yuntian Tower, and her status was different from before. Therefore, Lin Tianfeng's heart was full of uneasiness, and he could only look out the door from time to time, hoping to see that familiar figure again. However, their behavior was very laughable in the eyes of the people living with them in Cold Mountain Valley. "Oh, Master Lin, you're very lucky this time." Han Quan stood across from him and said somewhat cynically. Lin Tianfeng ignored him. Han Quan sneered. "We're already packing up and getting ready to leave." "Why, Master Lin, you're not leaving?" "That's right, it wasn't easy to find someone to rely on. If it were me, of course I wouldn't be willing to leave," Han Quan said sourly. It was impossible to say that he did not envy Lin Tianfeng and the others. Originally, Cave Heaven Cliff was a little worse than Cold Mountain Valley, but now, because they happened to meet Shangguan, their situation was completely different. Although there was a lot of controversy about the position of Shangguan princess, it was an existence that they could only dream of but not reach. Who wouldn't be jealous that Cave Heaven Cliff could climb such a high branch? But if you ask me, she's already a princess now, so why would she care about you? Lin family head, are you really going to stay here like this? Lin Tianfeng frowned. It's none of your business. Han Quan crossed his arms and sneered coldly. Don't blame me for not reminding you. Shangguan Yu is very popular now, but she stole Miss Zhang's princess position from the Immortal Water Tomb. They won't let this go. For the time being, they can't do anything to Shangguan Yu, but can't they use the people around her to sharpen their knives? In the future, I didn't expect Valley Master Han to know so much about the Yuntian Tower. A clear voice sounded. Han Quan was shocked. Lin Tianfeng, on the other hand, looked happy. "Do, greets the princess." He immediately reacted and bowed respectfully when he saw the person who had come. Chu Luiwei helped him up. "You're welcome, Master Lin. I'm here today to treat the fourth young master. I was dealing with some matters before, so it took a while for me to come." Lin Tianfeng was so excited that he didn't know what to say. "Thank you for your concern, Princess. Jifei is inside, please." Chu Luiwei nodded slightly and glanced at him from the corner of her eye. Yan Qing, since Valley Master Han is so insightful, Why don't we keep them here for a few more days? When His Highness has time, we can invite him to listen to Valley Master Han's advice. Yes. Han Quan's face paled. He was about to explain, but Chu Luiwei ignored him and left with Lin Tianfeng. On the other side, Rong Xiu came out of the study and went straight to his bedroom. But Chu Luiwei wasn't there. Where's the princess? Rong Xiu asked. Umo lowered his head. The princess went to treat the fourth young master. Rong Xiu raised his eyebrows. He really missed the days when he was weak and sick. Chapter 1098. Chu Luiwei followed Lin Tianfeng into the room. Upon hearing the commotion, Lin Qifei came out to welcome her, paying respects to Her Highness. Lin Qifei bowed respectfully. Even though it had only been a day, the identity of the woman before him had already undergone a tremendous change. Chu Luiwei smiled faintly. Fourth young Master Lin, there's no need to stand on ceremony. I promised to treat you, so naturally, I won't go back on my words. Please take a seat. Only then did Lin Qifei sit down. Chu Luiwei took his pulse and pondered for a moment. Your body has already recovered by 60%. You should be able to make a full recovery in just a few more days. Thank you, Her Highness. At the side, Lin Tianfeng could not suppress his excitement and said gratefully. In the past, Chu Luiwei was willing to help them because she wanted to obtain their help. But now, despite her astounding identity, she was still willing to help them. This was on a completely different level. Naturally, Lin Tianfeng was moved by her words. Lin Jifei smiled, and there was a trace of ripples in his clear eyes. Actually, the main problem has already been resolved. You can just leave the rest to the other celestial physician. There's no need for Her Highness to go to such lengths. Other celestial physician? Chu Luiwei released her hand, raised her brows, and laughed. Elder Lu Ruhai? The room immediately fell silent. There was no one else in the room other than the four of them, so there wasn't much apprehension between them. Lin Tianfeng frowned. He did offend Her Highness several times in the past, and I didn't expect him to say such words in front of everyone in the ethereal hall. To publicly accuse Chu Luiwei of being an outsider, wasn't he trying to make things difficult for her? If not for Rong Xiu and 36 respected Elder Ming's protection, as well as Chu Luiwei's outstanding performance, who knew what would have happened? Chu Luiwei walked to the side and wrote down a prescription. As he wrote, he said, Lu Ruhai and I have no grudge against each other, but he is targeting me so boldly and arrogantly. Don't you find it strange at all, Master Lin? Lin Tianfeng's expression changed. Princess consort, you mean, if he's only making things difficult for me because I cured Lin Qifei and did what he couldn't do, then he's too petty. However, no matter what, he's still a 9-star pinnacle celestial physician. All he has to do is use some means to punish me. Why must he bring this matter to the ethereal hall? Chu Luiwei put down the pen and carefully reviewed the prescription before handing it over to Yan Qing. Please get me some medicine. Yan Qing took it with both hands, responded respectfully, and left quickly. This was the Yuntian Tower, and Chu Luiwei was the newly appointed princess consort. No one dared to do anything to her. Thus, Yan Qing wasn't worried at all. She quickly went to get the medicine. Lin Tianfeng wasn't a fool. He immediately understood what Chu Luiwei was trying to say. Princess consort, you're saying that someone instigated Lu Ruhai to do this? Suddenly, his expression changed. The person who did this had to be related to them and had the ability to do so. After thinking about it, there was only one person who could do it. Luiwei? He muttered in disbelief. Chu Luiwei chuckled. It seems like Master Lin is still clear-headed. Lin Tianhai's face turned green and red. How can that be? Lu Ruhai has been loyal to our Lin clan for decades, and Yuer has only been here for a short while. Fourth young master has been ill for as long as she has been in the Lin clan. Chu Luiwei said meaningfully. Lin Tianfeng was shocked. Chu Luiwei's words contained too much information. Could it be that Jifei's illness was caused by her? He looked back at Lin Qifei, only to see that his expression was calm and indifferent, as if he wasn't shocked at all. Lin Qifei had known about it for a long time. Lin Tianfeng felt as if he had been struck by lightning. Master Lin, please don't misunderstand. Fourth young master was indeed born with this illness, and it wasn't inflicted on him by someone else. Of course, his illness in his mother's womb was benefited by someone else. Chu Luiyue said calmly. In just a few words, he had revealed the Lin clan's huge secret that had been hidden for many years. Lin Tianfeng trembled, his face pale, and he couldn't speak. Father, don't worry. Your son's body has recovered. I didn't tell you before because I didn't want you to worry. Lin Qifei explained. But you can rest assured now. Lin Tianfeng took a while to process this. Then Lu Ruhai has been saying that he can't cure you all these years. Could it be that he was also pretending that wasn't a pretense? Lin Qifei smiled faintly. He really doesn't have the ability. If he hadn't met Chu Luiyue, he wouldn't have thought that he would have a chance to turn things around. He didn't say it before because he had many concerns. But now, Chu Luiyue was the princess of Yuntian Tower, and Lu Ruhai had dug his own grave and made such a big trouble for himself. He might as well take the opportunity to get rid of him once and for all. Chu Luiyue took out a bead. This was taken from fourth young master's body before. It's also the cause of his illness. Lu Yi once admitted that it was his sister who did it. Lin Tianfeng was shocked. But he had to believe it, because Chu Luiyue didn't have to lie to him about this. Lu Yu, her brother, and Lu Ruhai did offend her, but with her current status, she could easily kill them. Why would she make up such a lie? She has someone behind her? Lin Tianfeng thought for a while and asked. Chu Luiyue handed over the bead. I wonder if Master Lin recognizes the pattern on it. Lin Tianfeng carefully took the bead with both hands and looked at it carefully. After a moment, he frowned and shook his head. This seems to be the totem of some clan, but I've never seen it. Is this the person behind Lu Yu? Lin Tianfeng's voice trembled slightly when he spoke. It was indeed difficult for him to accept these things in such a short time. After all, he had always trusted and doted on Lu Yu all these years. He even had some opinions about Lin Qifei because he didn't approve of Lu Yu. Now it seemed ridiculous. Chu Luiyue shook her head regretfully. In fact, this result was already within her expectations. Then it seems that we need to look again. Lin Qifei stepped forward and took the bead. Father, don't worry. I know what I'm doing. When my body fully recovers, I will seek justice for myself. Lin Tianfeng's lips moved and he sighed, as if he had aged a few years in an instant. He patted Lin Qifei's shoulder and said in a deep voice, Don't worry. When we go back this time, Father will deal with them personally. As for Lu Ruhai, he had automatically abandoned the word elder. A traitor was no longer qualified to be called that. How about we leave it to the princess? Chu Luiyue touched her chin and smiled. Good. Chapter 1099. At this moment, Lu Ruhai, who was next door, also knew that Chu Luiyue had arrived. He paced around the room anxious and worried. As a pinnacle 9th-grade celestial physician, he was generally respected wherever he went. Therefore, he had always been very arrogant and did not take others seriously. He was also used to having an arrogant temper. But this time, he knew very well that he had kicked an iron plate. Ever since Chu Luiyue's identity as princess consort was confirmed during the consort selection ceremony last night, he was dumbfounded. He did not even remember how he came back. There was only one sentence echoing in his mind. It's over. It's all over. It would have been fine if he had offended others, but he had offended Chu Luiyue. Moreover, looking at the saint's protection of her, he knew that he had completely offended the saint this time. Lu Ruhai had been feeling uneasy ever since he returned. Originally, he had hoped that Chu Luiyue and the rest would be busy with their own matters and would not care too much about other things. But she still came. Lu Ruhai could not wait to rush over and listen to what they were talking about. The current him still did not know that his fate had actually been decided during the idle conversation between the few of them. Yan Qing quickly returned. Chu Luiyue placed a medicinal cauldron in the room and helped him refine medicine. Of course, She did not use the heavenly square cauldron. Lin Qifei's body was in the final stage of recuperation. He did not even need to refine the medicine. He only needed to brew the medicine. In about an hour, the medicine was ready. The rich medicinal fragrance filled the entire room. Taking a deep breath made one's body and mind feel much better. Lin Tianfeng's original grief and anger also magically calmed down. Lin Qifei used the medicine. His originally pale face gained some color. Actually, his body recovered faster than Chu Luiwei expected. On one hand, Lin Qifei was talented. On the other hand, the rich force of heaven and earth in the Yuntian Tower was very good for the body's recuperation and cultivation. Chu Luiwei looked at Lin Tianfeng. I'll have to trouble Master Lin to invite Lu Ruhai over. Lin Tianfeng was stunned for a moment, then nodded. After he left, Lin Qifei looked at Chu Luiwei and said firmly, "Thank you. Is there anything else I can help you with?" Chu Luiwei smiled. Lin Qifei was indeed smart. Dealing with smart people was indeed a lot easier. I do have something that I would like to ask for your help with. What? I would like to ask you to help me build a teleportation array formation. Lin Qifei's eyes flashed slightly. Deep in his eyes, which were as clear as a lake, there seemed to be some waves. I'll go wherever I come from. Chu Luiwei blinked. From the Cave Heaven Cliff to the Tianling dynasty. As soon as he finished speaking, the room fell into a dead silence. Lin Qifei subconsciously looked at Yan Qing, who was standing next to him. Yan Qing works for His Highness. Don't worry. No one will know about this. Chu Luiwei said with a smile. Anyway, Rong Xiu would know what she wanted to do sooner or later, so she might as well be frank. Lin Qifei's expression changed slightly. He was really surprised. His Highness doesn't know about this? He will pretend not to know even if he knows. Chu Luiwei raised her eyebrows and smiled meaningfully. Her words were very natural and firm. At this moment, Lin Qifei suddenly understood why her eyes were always curved and bright when she talked about her husband. Because she had always trusted and relied on that person. Perhaps she didn't even realize that she was acting coquettishly. Lin Qifei paused. The sects and clans in the world of divine ruins are not allowed to connect with the outside world privately, let alone build teleportation formations. That's why I came to you. Chu Luiwei smiled carelessly. If it were anyone else, they probably wouldn't have the guts. Even if they had the guts, they wouldn't have the ability. But you have both, fourth young Master Lin. The Cave Heaven Cliff guards a door. You know better than anyone how to do this. Besides, you will be the cliff master of the Cave Heaven Cliff sooner or later. It is your territory. It would be best if you are willing to help. I can guarantee that this will be kept a secret. You will not be implicated in any trouble. Fourth young Master Lin, do you agree? Lin Qifei was silent for a moment. Then he smiled helplessly. Since you've already put it this way, how can I refuse? Chu Luiwei had saved his life. It was only right that he repay her with his life. Besides, she didn't hesitate at all. She believed that he could do it. This was the greatest affirmation for him. Lin Qifei knew that he was talented in this area. But he had been seriously ill for many years and didn't dare to have any delusions. He only hid in the dark and occasionally acted. He was not without regrets. Young people were always full of youthful vigor. Who didn't want to achieve great things? It's a deal. Chu Luiwei smiled. Fourth young Master Lin, I look forward to working with you. Lu Ruhai was quickly brought over. Chu Luiwei and the others in the room had already recovered. No one could guess what had happened in that short period of time. Elder Lu, Chu Luiwei greeted him with a smile. Why do you look so tired today? Did you not have enough fun yesterday? Lu Ruhai's heart skipped a beat. Greetings, Your Highness. As he spoke, he bowed with trepidation. Chu Luiwei sat there and slowly poured a cup of tea. But she didn't drink it. Time passed slowly. Lu Ruhai bowed and held his hands. He felt uncomfortable all over. He specialized in celestial physician. His cultivation level as a martial artist was very ordinary. So when Chu Luiwei deliberately exerted pressure, he couldn't bear it. It wasn't until his legs started to tremble and his face turned red that Chu Luiwei spoke casually. Elder Lu, you don't have to be so polite. I'm here today because I have some questions for you. Chu Luiyue looked up at him as she spoke. Her dark and sharp eyes were like blades that could cut through everything. Who is Lu Yuer's backer? Lu Ruhai was shocked. He suddenly raised his head, but when he met those cold eyes, he quickly lowered his head. I don't know what your highness is talking about, Yan Qing. Chu Luiyue called out lazily. Yan Qing stepped forward with an expressionless face and kicked Lu Ruhai's knee hard. Crack. The sound of bones breaking was particularly crisp. Lu Ruhai screamed and knelt on the ground. He wanted to curse out loud, but he didn't forget that the other party was now someone he couldn't afford to offend. So he could only ask Lin Tianfeng for help. Master, save me. Chu Luiyue interrupted him. Elder Lu, there's no need to shout. Master Lin has already taken the initiative to give you to me. Life or death, it's all up to her. Lu Ruhai's heart sank. He forced himself to raise his head. His lips were pale. Why, your highness just took the throne, but you can't wait to kill someone who offended you. Aren't you afraid of being criticized for being narrow-minded and ruthless? Chu Luiyue suddenly smiled and said word by word, it's because you just took the throne that you have to set rules. Chapter 1100. Everyone knew that Lu Ruhai had offended her. If she let it go just like that, no one would thank her for her generosity. They would only think that she was weak and easy to bully. Someone had come knocking on her door and almost humiliated her in public. This kind of thing could be tolerated, but should not be tolerated. If they knew that even someone like Lu Ruhai could escape unscathed from her, who knew how much trouble they would cause in the future? Chu Luiyue clearly remembered that when she first came here, those people in Cold Mountain Valley were still talking about how the people of the Immortal Water Tomb would deal with her. If even people of their status could think of this, it could be seen that others also thought so. Chu Luiyue came from outside the realm. Although she had performed outstandingly before on the mountaintop, when she faced the infinite divine dial, the results were even more stunning. But in the end, she did not have the support of a powerful sect behind her. So what if she was the emperor of the Tianling dynasty? In the eyes of these people, she was still not worth mentioning. Therefore, she had to let these people understand that she was not to be trifled with. Apart from that, she had another purpose for interrogating Lu Ruhai. She wanted to find out who Lu Yuer's backer was, in case the enemy was in the dark while she was in the light, and she did not know when she would be schemed against. After all, she was now on the same side as Lin Qifei. If she could really connect Heavenly Cave Cliff and the Tianling dynasty with a teleportation formation, then it would be much more convenient for her to travel between these two places in the future. Moreover, it would not be just her. With her current status, of course, she could enter and leave the Divine Ruins world as she pleased, but there were also great limitations. Rong Xiao, as the Holy Sun, was watched by many people. In the future, she would certainly not lack the same treatment. From this point of view, Chu Luiyue hoped that she could not rely on Rong Xiao and establish her own power and influence. This way, she could leave another path open. Elder Lu, the sooner you explain clearly, the sooner you will suffer less, won't you? Chu Luiyue smiled leisurely. She was clearly smiling, but it made people unconsciously feel a deep sense of fear. Lu Ruhai's eyes averted. I don't know. I really, Yan Qing, help Elder Lu Ruhai recall. See if he can remember anything. Chu Luiyue raised his chin. Yan Qing responded and immediately stepped forward to attack again. Don't. Lu Ruhai didn't even have the chance to struggle and defend himself before he was sent flying by Yan Qing's kick. He slammed into the wall. Yan Qing quickly followed up and hit the most vulnerable and painful part of his body. Not long after, Lu Ruhai's initial resistance gradually turned into begging for mercy. In the end, all that was left was a powerless moan of pain. A 9th-grade pinnacle celestial physician was indeed of high status and could attract the admiration and pursuit of many experts. Unfortunately, he could only lie powerlessly on the ground, struggling at death's door. Lu Ruhai's ears were buzzing. Her mind was blank. and her whole body was almost numb from the pain. Only now did he realize that this young woman who was always smiling in front of him really had the intention to kill. I said. Lu Ruhai spat out a few words with difficulty. Chu Luiwei raised her hand. Only then did Yan Qing stop. Say it. Lu Ruhai opened his mouth, which was full of blood. Before Lu Ruhai could finish his sentence, he suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. His eyes rolled back, and his body convulsed violently. Then he fell to the ground, motionless. Chu Luiwei frowned. Yan Qing was about to attack when she stopped her. Don't touch him. Yan Qing was stunned. Then she saw Lu Ruhai's body rapidly shriveling and rotting. In the end, it only turned into a pool of blood. It seems that he is also from that side. Chu Luiwei muttered. He and Lu Yuer worked together not necessarily because of Lu Yuer's orders. It could also be that they have the same master. I'll have to trouble Master Lin to investigate this matter after we go back. Lin Tianfeng nodded with a complicated expression. The other party's methods are so powerful. I'm afraid Lu Yuer's side has long been prepared. It doesn't matter. Chu Luiwei stood up. The truth will come out one day. It's getting late. I'll leave first. As for Lu Ruhai, we will clean it up. Princess, don't worry. Lin Qifei said warmly. From the beginning to the end, he was much calmer and more composed than Lin Tianfeng. This made Chu Luiwei even more satisfied. She nodded and left with Yan Qing. When Chu Luiwei returned to the sacrificial god temple, it was already night. As soon as she entered the room, she saw a familiar figure. It was Rong Xiu. He was lying on the bed, holding a book in his hand. Hearing the movement, he looked up. Before he opened his mouth, a light and bitter medicinal fragrance came to the tip of his nose. He narrowed his eyes, then put the book down and coughed. Chu Luiwei glanced at him. Your Highness, you've always been in good health. Why are you coughing? Rong Xiu's face turned pale. It's probably because I didn't sleep last night that I'm feeling a little uncomfortable. Chu Luiwei remembered that last night she said she fell asleep in a daze. In her impression, she was indeed being held by someone. He didn't sleep last night? During the day, his face did seem a little haggard. Chu Luiwei walked over to take his pulse. Your Highness's body is weak. If you're not sick, Chu Luiwei raised her eyes slightly and gave him a warning look. Your Highness can lie to me once, but there won't be a second time. Rong Xiu raised his eyebrows, turned his wrist, and held her hand. Are you still angry with me? He was always cold, noble, and charming. Even if there was a smile on his face, there seemed to be a faint layer of cold aura lingering around him. It made people unable to get close to him, as if they were afraid of offending and profaning him. It seemed that such a person could only be looked up to. But at this moment, his voice was low and mellow, with a hint of hoarseness. It was very different from his usual gentleness. Inexplicably, it was as if something was scratching her heart, making it itchy. The light at the side shone on his incomparably enchanting face. His brows were slightly knitted, and his phoenix-like eyes were focused. He looked at her deeply with gentleness, helplessness, and as if there was a trace of grievance. Chu Luiwei's heart suddenly softened. It was as if something had permeated the air. It was sour, sweet, and numb. It was rare for a man who was always tyrannical to show such an expression. That was why it was especially moving. Rong Xiu looked at her and said in a low voice, No, I haven't had a good sleep in a long time. Miraculously, Chu Luiwei guessed his unspoken words immediately. Her eyes moved slightly, and she bent down slightly, moving closer to Rong Xiu. The two of them could almost hear each other's breaths. With a hint of a smile, she asked, Why? Then does your Highness want to sleep with me? Rong Xiu held her hand tightly. You agree? Chu Luiwei seemed to be a little distressed and frowned. But we haven't gotten married yet. This doesn't seem very good, right? Moreover, there is only one bed here. Rong Xiu suddenly smiled. I can sleep on the ground. Chu Luiwei's expression froze. She immediately gritted her teeth and said, There is only one quilt here. Rong Xiu's long fingertips gently rubbed the side of her wrist. It's okay. I have several beds. Digression, continue in the afternoon, 6 p.m. Wah wah wah. Chapter 1101. Chu Luiyue truly did not know whether to praise the Holy Sun for his foresight, strategizing, and resourcefulness. He had actually prepared such a thing in advance. But seeing that a certain someone seemed to be aware of this, Chu Luiyue still very cooperatively invited him to sleep on the floor. Originally, she did not want to let Rong Xiu stay, but considering that there were still many soldiers guarding outside, it was really inappropriate to chase him out like this. In the end, Chu Luiyue chose to settle for the next best thing. The Holy Sun was very satisfied with this result. Some things were quite good to get used to in advance. In the end, the two peacefully began the night of not sharing a bed. Chu Luiyue was on the bed, and Rong Xiu was on the floor. She had a trace of hesitation at first, but when she saw Rong Xiu very calmly and politely take out 2 blankets, neatly make 1 bed, and even leave 1 for the other, Chu Luiyue felt that her hesitation was really unnecessary. Then, she simply closed her eyes, intending to sleep. Dusk fell, and the lights in the room went out one by one. The surroundings darkened. Rong Xiu seemed to have already laid down, and was not far from her. Actually, this bedchamber was very large, and there was a lot of space to sleep on the floor. But Rong Xiu still tried his best to fight for this last bit of compromise for himself. According to him, it was already pitiful enough that they were forced to sleep separately right after taking a consort. If they were too far apart, he would still not be able to sleep well. And so, Chu Luiyue had him sleep on the floor next to the bed, and at the same time, set up a barrier. It was quiet. Chu Luiyue lay on the bed, but she could not fall asleep no matter how hard she tried. After a long while, she finally opened her eyes. Moonlight spilled in through the window, as cool as water, casting faint shadows on the floor. Chu Luiyue turned her head and looked at Rong Xiu, who was sleeping not far away. From here, she could clearly see Rong Xiu's sleeping face. He rested his head on his arm, one of his long legs curled up. Even though the surrounding light was dim, the moonlight still clearly outlined the perfect lines of his face. The inexplicable anxiety and uneasiness in Chu Luiyue's heart suddenly dissipated. It was as if as long as this person was by his side, all problems would be easily solved. She blinked and tilted her body slightly to take a closer look. Even though he was sleeping, he was still as handsome as ever. It would be fine if he didn't open his eyes. Once it opened, it would suck in one's soul. It was as if it could pull one into a bottomless abyss, causing one to sink into oblivion. Suddenly, his brows furrowed as if he was having a nightmare. Then, his frown deepened. A faint layer of cold air covered his entire body. Chu Luiyue was shocked. Soon, she saw that there was a layer of frost on the ground. Under the reflection of the moonlight, it flashed with a bone-chilling light. Rong Xiu! Chu Luiyue called out to him. But Rong Xiu only curled up his body slightly. That thin layer of blanket covering his body seemed insignificant at this moment. Chu Luiyue sat up. Rong Xiu! Rong Xiu's face was buried in the shadows and couldn't be seen clearly. Chu Luiyue pursed her lips, dispersed the barrier, and walked over. Rong Xiu, if you continue to pretend, I'm going to get angry. As Chu Luiyue spoke, she finally saw Rong Xiu's face clearly. When she saw that his thick eyelashes were also covered with a layer of frost, she finally realized that something was wrong. She quickly bent down and touched his face. It was cold to the touch. It was so cold that Chu Luiyue felt cold all over. Rong Xiu seemed to feel something. He grabbed her hand and pulled her into his embrace. His movements were rough and wild, completely different from his usual gentleness and restraint. Chu Luiyue tried her best not to scream out loud as she released the force from her body and followed his strength to fall into his arms. Rong Xiu's iron arms wrapped around Chu Luiyue and his long legs pressed down. He easily trapped her tightly in his embrace. Chu Luiyue's chest tightened. When she finally struggled out of his embrace and raised her head, she saw that his brows were slowly relaxing. Then, under Chu Luiyue's gaze, the frost on his eyelashes gradually melted. His originally cold skin gradually warmed up and returned to its normal temperature. Chu Luiwei didn't notice that the frost on the ground beside them was also disappearing bit by bit at this time. Rong Xiu's eyelashes moved. Just when Chu Luiwei thought that he was going to wake up, Rong Xiu changed to a more comfortable position and hugged her. His breathing gradually became long and deep. Chu Luiwei was confused. Is he asleep? The series of actions made Chu Luiwei suspect that he did it on purpose. However, seeing that he seemed to have really fallen asleep, Chu Luiwei couldn't bear to wake him up. Perhaps he really hasn't slept well during this period of time? Chu Luiwei looked at him for a while, raised her head slightly, leaned over, and gently tapped his lips. Then, she snuggled back into his arms and closed her eyes to sleep. For some reason, she fell into a deep sleep very quickly this time. After a long time, when she was completely asleep, the man in the dark slowly opened his eyes. He looked at her with a deep gaze. Although this consumed a little of his force, but it was very wise to let them prepare a double quilt in advance. The next day, Chu Luiwei woke up on the bed. Rong Xiu had already gone out. She subconsciously glanced at the ground. Yes, it's clean and tidy. The quilt has been carefully kept away by the holy sun. Chu Luiwei narrowed her eyes. Rong Xiu's body. I'll have to ask again if there's really something wrong with it. However, before she could ask, Dugu Mabao arrived. You're awake. If you're awake, get up and play chess. Chu Luiwei's head hurt. However, when she thought of Rong Xiu, she gritted her teeth, quickly washed up, and invited Dugu Mabao in. Let's begin. For the next few days, Chu Luiwei's life was the same every day. Every day, she would play chess with Dugu Mabao, then go to the training field to fight with the puppets for 4 hours. After that, she would spend some time to reflect and improve her cultivation. In between, she would also help Lin Qifei treat his illness and refine medicine. Usually, she could only see Rong Xiu at night. Chu Luiwei could feel that Rong Xiu was very busy. However, he didn't say what he was busy with, and Chu Luiwei didn't take the initiative to ask. It was just that he often couldn't sleep well at night. Chu Luiwei couldn't stand it anymore and would end up sleeping on the floor with him every time. Of course, she would always return to bed the next morning. The 5 days set by Dugu Mabao passed quickly. The puppets that Chu Luiwei fought with had really changed to mid-level level 8. Moreover, the time she spent every day on this had also increased to 6 hours. The results of the high-intensity training were also very obvious. Chu Luiwei's close combat strength had improved a lot compared to before. In addition, although she hadn't been able to quickly break through in martial artist cultivation, however, Chu Luiwei had broken through to the peak of level 8 as a mystic master. The distance to level 9 was within reach. Chapter 1102. And in these few days, Lin Qifei's body had more or less recovered. As long as Chu Luiwei went one last time and let him use the last medicine, she could leave in peace. As for those people in Cold Mountain Valley, Chu Luiwei didn't put too much thought into it. Because she hadn't mentioned this matter to Rong Xiu yet, Rong Xiu had already let Yan Qing deal with those people herself. When they were finally able to leave, Chu Luiwei had coincidentally met them once. Han Quan had one leg and one arm crippled, and the remaining few people were more or less crippled. And they were the kind that was hard to recover from. After this, these people were basically crippled. In the future, not to mention improving, it was already extremely difficult for them to maintain their current realm. Under the Yuntian Tower, there were a total of 28 tribes. Previously, Rong Xiu had personally destroyed the unparalleled palace, and now even if he destroyed another Cold Mountain Valley, no one would care. Therefore, the people of Cold Mountain Valley didn't even dare to have resentment in their hearts, and could only flee with their tails between their legs. They were afraid that if they left too late, they would directly die here. The situation of Cold Mountain Valley and Lu Ruhai was quickly spread. Everyone discussed in private. At this time, some people finally realized that this newly ascended princess was not as weak and easy to bully as they thought. With such thoughts and methods, coupled with that kind of talent, It might not be difficult to gain a foothold in the Yuntian Tower. Chu Luiwei allowed outsiders to speculate and comment and ignored them all. In the Divine Ruins world, strength was respected. As long as she was strong enough, she could make these people obediently shut their mouths. Other than that, she had another very important thing to do. At noon on this day, it was rare that Rong Xiu was free, so Chu Luiwei pulled him to play chess together. After a fierce battle, Chu Luiwei was still defeated. Looking at the chessboard that collapsed in front of her, Chu Luiwei gritted her teeth. This man's talent and strength were extremely astonishing. She was afraid that it would be difficult to catch up to him in a short period of time. Chu Luiwei had no choice but to change the topic. Your Highness, there's something I forgot to ask. Do you know Jun Jiuqing? Rong Xiu paused in his actions and silently looked up at her. Then he nodded. Yes and no. Chu Luiwei frowned. How do you know each other? Logically speaking, the two of them had nothing to do with each other. And from the looks of it, Jun Jiuqing seemed to know a lot about the Yuntian Tower. With his identity as Prince Baiming, he really shouldn't know about this. He has also been to the Divine Ruins world before? Or was he originally from the Divine Ruins realm? Rong Xiu pondered for a moment and smiled. He was indeed born in the Divine Ruins realm, but he was sent back to the Dark North a long time ago. But he hasn't cut off contact with this side. Chu Luiwei nodded in understanding. If that was the case, many things could be explained clearly. But why was he sent back? Countless people in the world fought to enter the Divine Ruins realm and establish a foothold here. And Jun Jiuqing was like. At that time, the family he was in was very quarrelsome. In order to save his life, the people above sent him away. And that family has a good relationship with the Dark North, so. Then he's not the biological son of the Dark North Emperor? Of course not. But because of his special identity, Jun Qiji has always treated him like his own son. Even in the Dark North royal family, only a handful of people know about this. But you know, Chu Luiwei narrowed her eyes. Rong Xiu raised his eyebrows and smiled. If I don't know about this, then the position of the Son of Heaven wouldn't be mine. He was just teasing with a smile on his lips, but Chu Luiwei's heart tightened when she heard it. She only had a rough idea of Rong Xiu's background and could finish it in a few words. But only Rong Xiu himself knew how much hardship and sadness was contained in these simple words. He was never recognized by the family, but he became one of the top existences in the family. It was obvious how much he had gone through. So, Jun Jiuqing has also returned to the Divine Ruins realm? Yes. Rong Xiu suddenly thought of something and his expression faded. Chu Luiwei was deep in thought. Although Jun Jiuqing had not broken through to the God realm, but, with such a background, it was not a big problem for him to enter and leave the Divine Ruins realm. Chu Luiwei rested her chin on one hand and muttered, but after all, he was raised outside. Could it be that his family really doesn't have any grudges? It's all because he has a good master. Rong Xiu said. Chu Luiwei was stunned. Master? His master is a student. Rong Xiu suddenly stopped halfway. Just as Chu Luiwei was about to ask again, there was a knock on the door. Your Highness, there's an urgent letter. It was Yumo's voice. Rong Xiu got up and went to open the door. Yumo respectfully handed it over and said, This is the academy. Before he could finish, Rong Xiu suddenly stopped him with a look. He glanced around and noticed that Chu Luiwei was inside. Yumo quickly fell silent. Rong Xiu did not open the letter. He just turned around and told Chu Luiwei that he had to deal with something temporarily and then left. Chu Luiwei's eyebrows twitched slightly. Study. Academy? Did Rong Xiu want to say this just now? Chu Luiwei could not think of an answer, so he simply put this matter to the back of his mind and went to see Lin Qifei for the last time. After a few days of careful recuperation in Yuntian Tower, Lin Qifei's complexion was much better. In the past, he looked like a piece of sparkling and fragile glass, but now he seemed to have a bit more of a human touch. Coupled with his gradually increasing strength, no one dared to underestimate him. Chu Luiwei brewed the last medicine. Lin Qifei held the medicine, paused for a moment, and drank it in one gulp. Thank you. He looked at Chu Luiwei with a serious expression. Chu Luiwei smiled and shook his head. It's nothing. But I'll have to trouble you with the teleportation formation. Lin Qifei nodded and then said, actually, with my current strength, it might be a little difficult to complete this alone. So I think I'll think of a way to improve my strength first, and then, sharpening the knife won't delay the cutting of wood. Chu Luiwei finished his sentence and smiled. Of course, it's no problem if you think so. But what do you plan to do specifically? Dong Tongcliffe? There shouldn't be anyone who can teach you, right? Even if there was, he might not trust them. Lin Qifei paused and said, I want to go to Lingxiao College first. Chu Luiwei was stunned. What? Lingxiao College? Lin Qifei saw her reaction and thought that she did not know, so he patiently explained, Lingxiao College is the top college in the Divine Ruins world. There are many top experts there. If you can cultivate there, you will definitely benefit greatly. So, Chu Luiwei suddenly thought of something and interrupted him. Rong Xiu also has contact with this college, right? Chapter 1103. Of course. Lin Qifei said matter-of-factly. His Highness the Holy Sun is one of the most outstanding students in Lingxiao College. Back then, His Highness the Holy Sun was in the limelight at Lingxiao College. However, in the past 2 years, His Highness rarely went back, so he kept a low profile. However, he is still admired by many students in Lingxiao College. Chu Luiwei was slightly stunned. He's a student there? But isn't he a member of Yuntian Tower? Why isn't he cultivating in the clan? Instead, Lin Qifei finally understood that Chu Luiwei's focus was wrong. He smiled faintly and explained. Princess, it seems that you really don't know much about Lingxiao College. Although it is called a college, Lingxiao College is definitely qualified to be called the top college in the world of Divine Ruins. Lingxiao College has a history of more than 10,000 years. It has a long history and a deep foundation. Even many first-class families may not be able to compete with it. There are the most powerful cultivators in the continent. It is rich in resources and is extremely rare. Therefore, in addition to those itinerant cultivators, many disciples of aristocratic families also want to cultivate in Lingxiao College. On one hand, you can get systematic guidance and cultivation in Lingxiao College. On the other hand, Lingxiao College students are all over the continent and most of them have deep feelings for Lingxiao College. If you can become a member of the college, you will undoubtedly broaden your network. No matter from which aspect, cultivating in Lingxiao College is the dream of countless cultivators in the world of Divine Ruins. Lin Qifei said and took a deep breath. There seemed to be waves in his clear eyes. It's the same for me. This was indeed an unattainable dream for Lin Qifei in the past. At that time, even going out was a problem for him. His body was always tormented. But it was different now. He already had a healthy body, so Lingxiao College did not seem so unattainable anymore. Chu Luiwei could see his deep yearning and expectation for Lingxiao College, and a little curiosity arose in his heart. Lin Qifei had an indifferent personality. It was rare to see him care so much about anything. He didn't even seem to care about the position of the cliff master of the Heavenly Cave Cliff. However, when he mentioned Lingxiao College, his expression was completely different. Was that academy really that powerful? Chu Luiwei couldn't help but tease him. It seems that this Lingxiao College is really good. Now that you've mentioned it, even I want to go and have a look. Lin Qifei's eyes suddenly lit up. He sat up straight and said, It's not impossible for Wang Fei to think this way. With the talent you've shown, you'll definitely be accepted. No matter what, she was really just a rank 7 warrior now. If it was really as she said, that she didn't have any sects or clans to rely on in the Divine Ruins world, then Lingxiao College was the best place to go. Chu Luiwei also thought of this. She narrowed her eyes and began to seriously think about this matter. What you said makes sense. Other than being a little curious about Rong Xiu, she could improve her cultivation and expand her network. It was simply the best of both worlds. Although Yuntian Tower was good, she always felt that it wasn't very free. When she thought of the few revered elders who were especially against her and Rong Xiu, Chu Luiyue felt a little annoyed. It seemed inconvenient for her to do anything she wanted. Here, as the Wangfei, her every word and action was always being watched. Thinking of this, Chu Luiyue wanted to go to Lingxiao College even more. I'll think about this matter again, Chu Luiyue said and stood up. As for you, just go if you want to. Just don't forget the agreement between us. Lin Qifei nodded solemnly. Since Wang Fei has instructed, I will do my best. After Chu Luiyue returned to her bedroom, she began to think about Lingxiao College again. Dugu Mabao saw that she seemed to be a little absent-minded, so he asked casually, "What are you thinking about?" Chu Luiyue paused and asked, "Debao, have you heard of Lingxiao College?" Dugu Mabao paused in his actions and looked up at her without batting an eyelid. His pair of demonic purple eyes were deep and unreadable. "I've heard of it. Why did you suddenly think of it? I'm wondering if I should go and take a look." Chu Luiyue didn't hide her intentions from Dugu Mabao. "I heard that if I can go, it will be very beneficial to my cultivation." Dugu Mabao was expressionless. "Do you think that I'm not good enough to teach you?" "Of course not." Chu Luiyue glanced at him. Of course, she knew what an honor it was to be taught by such a god-level expert. But after all, a college was different from a person. "I just think that going to the college has its own benefits. To be able to stand in the world of divine ruins for 10,000 years, it must be an extraordinary existence." And Chu Luiyue paused for a moment. "And I have a feeling that this place is a little familiar." Dugu Mabao lowered his eyes. After a while he said, "Theater." Then, as if he suddenly thought of something, he asked, "What did Rong Xiu say?" Chu Luiyue waved her hand. "I don't intend to tell him about this." Dugu Mabao looked up in surprise. Chu Luiyue blinked and looked normal, as if she didn't think that there was anything strange about her actions. She had a feeling that Rong Xiu seemed to be deliberately hiding something from her about Lingxiao College. The more he was like this, the more she wanted to go and see for herself. Dugu Mabao was silent for a while. "Many people already know that you are the princess of the Yuntian Tower, and many people have seen your face. They will know if they ask around." Who said that I want to go with this face?" Chu Luiyue laughed. Dugu Mabao immediately understood. "You've made up your mind?" "Yes." Chu Luiyue looked much more serious. "In addition to the reasons I told you before, there is one more thing. Jun Jiuqing seems to have a master over there. My father is still in Jun Jiuqing's hands, and I don't know where he is imprisoned. Maybe this is a way." This was actually the most decisive factor. At this point, Dugu Mabao finally nodded. But Chu Luiyue looked at Debao hesitantly. "Debao, you are a little too conspicuous. Why don't I find a mask for you? You don't have to worry about that." Dugu Mabao closed his eyes. "I will hide my identity on the way. After arriving at the college, no one will notice anything unusual." At night, Rong Xiu came back. Just as Chu Luiyue was hesitating to find an excuse, Rong Xiu spoke first. "I have to go out for a while. I'm afraid I can't stay with you for the time being." In fact, the other side had been urging him for a long time. He really couldn't delay it, so he said this. Chu Luiyue almost instantly guessed that it must be related to Lingxiao College. "Then I will concentrate on cultivating during this time and wait for you." Chapter 1104. Rong Xiu kissed her forehead. "I've already sent people to investigate Lord Chu Ning's matter. After a while, there should be some clues." Chu Luiyue was stunned, and a warm current surged in her heart. She nodded slightly. That night, Rong Xiu was finally able to put away the blanket and lay on the bed. The two fell asleep in each other's arms. The next morning, Rong Xiu left, leaving Umo to take care of Chu Luiyue. As soon as he left, a few revered elders came to see her. Chu Luiyue asked Umo to reject them all, and only told them that she was going to start her seclusion. As the princess, Chu Luiyue was now living in the sacrificial god temple. Other than the clan leader and the Holy Sun, no one else was allowed to come here. Of course, there was now Chu Luiyue. So, as long as she didn't want to, these revered elders couldn't see her. So, Chu Luiyue stayed in the palace and started her seclusion, while Umo waited outside attentively. It would be extremely troublesome to leave the cloud Tianke without anyone noticing, because from here, one had to go through the teleportation formation that led to the outside world. But it was different for Chu Luiyue, because she had the holy ring on her hand. So, she could easily open the teleportation formation in the sacrificial god temple. In addition, she also asked Dugu Mabao to help her leave a trace of her aura, and poured it into a puppet, pretending to be her. Coupled with the barrier, as long as Umo didn't take the initiative to barge in, he wouldn't be discovered. Even if he realized that something was wrong, Chu Luiyue would have already left by then. So, Chu Luiyue quietly left the Yuntian Tower and went to Lingxiao College. Lingxiao College was very far from the Yuntian Tower. In addition, Chu Luiyue didn't dare to directly go through the Yuntian Tower's teleportation formation, so she deliberately took a few turns in the middle, which took more time. But fortunately, with Dugu Mabao, they had a smooth journey. After about 5 days, Chu Luiyue and Dugu Mabao finally arrived at Fang Prefecture. The Fang province was the closest city to the Spirit Firmament Academy. Everyone who wanted to enter Lingxiao College had to pass through here. Walking out of the teleportation formation, Chu Luiyue sighed as she looked at the city not far away, and sighed. Fang Prefecture? It's indeed worthy of its reputation. Under the bluish-purple sky, a majestic and quaint city sat on a vast plain. The grayish-white boulders were piled up, rough and imposing, and the pressure was heavy. Behind the city, there was a huge wall. Rumor had it that Lingxiao College was behind the city. Outside Lingxiao College, there's a barrier formed by divine power. Anyone who wants to enter must obtain a pass from Fang Prefecture. Dugu Mabao explained. Chu Luiyue nodded. At this time, the two of them had carefully dressed up. Chu Luiyue was wearing a long blue robe, with a white jade belt around her waist. She wore a golden crown on her head. She was tall and handsome. At first glance, she looked like a young master from a noble family. She didn't show off, but she didn't let others look down on her. As for Dugu Mabao, who was beside her, he had already transformed into the same black hair and black eyes as her. His appearance was also somewhat different from before. He had changed from a top-notch cute girl to an ordinary one. In the past, when he walked on the streets, his face could inspire the motherly love of almost all women. But now, he seemed to be very concerned about this, and deliberately disguised himself as an ordinary one. Except for the cold and indifferent look in his eyes, he was almost completely different from before. If people didn't look carefully, they wouldn't be able to see anything unusual. Pass, Chu Luiyue murmured. Before coming, she had heard Dugu Mabao mention this matter. Lingxiao College was heavily guarded. Anyone who entered or left needed a pass. And there were only 2 ways to get this pass. First, it had to be related to the people in Lingxiao College. Second, find the teachers of Lingxiao College in Fang Prefecture, pass their assessment, and become a student of Lingxiao College. The first method was relatively simple, but it also had a disadvantage. The time inside was limited. Chu Luiyue couldn't expose her identity, so she could only choose the second method. Lingxiao College didn't accept students at a fixed time every year. As long as you were outstanding enough, you could come at any time. Therefore, in the world of divine ruins, almost every day, people came from all over to try to enter Lingxiao College. There were also some who stayed in Fang Prefecture and continued to cultivate while trying to find a way out. This was also one of the reasons why Fang Prefecture was so lively. However, in the end, there were only a few who could succeed. Let's go. Chu Luiyue took a deep breath. Dugu Mabao shook his head. After entering Fang Prefecture, I won't travel with you. Chu Luiyue was stunned. Dugu Mabao paused. Seeing her confused expression, he gave a rare explanation. There are a few acquaintances here. I'll go and meet them. After that, I'll wait for you in Lingxiao College. Chu Luiyue's eyes widened. At this moment, she suddenly realized that she seemed to have overlooked something. So, in fact, you can directly enter Lingxiao College. Dugu Mabao raised his eyebrows. Is that strange? His tone was too matter-of-fact, with a careless arrogance, so much so that Chu Liwei began to doubt herself. After thinking carefully, Chu Liwei felt that her question was meaningless. With Dugu Mabao's strength, it wasn't strange for him to be able to do this. She coughed. No, it's not strange. Don't make me wait too long. Dugu Mabao left these words, the void vibrated, and his figure flashed, instantly disappearing in front of Chu Liwei. Chu Liwei. He was so straightforward. Chu Liwei looked around. There were no less than 10 teleportation arrays here, but fortunately, the location of this teleportation array was relatively remote, and there was no one around, so no one paid attention to this place. She calmed herself down and began to walk forward. As she walked closer, Chu Liwei realized that Fang Prefecture was different from ordinary cities. There was no one guarding the entrance here. In fact, there was not even a door. On both sides were walls piled up with grayish-white stones, and in the middle was a huge and wide doorway. There was even a piece of broken wall beside it, as if it had been cut by someone with a sword. It looks very casual. There were many people going in and out here. To be precise, most of them were going in, and only a small number were going out. Moreover, most of the people who went in were full of excitement and anticipation. On the other hand, most of the people who went out were full of dejection and disappointment, and their eyes were full of regret. Obviously, these people were cultivators who had given up on entering Lingxiao College. Chu Liwei stepped in. However, just as she stepped through the doorway, a strange fluctuation suddenly came from the water droplet in her body. An unusually familiar feeling welled up in her heart. Chapter 1105. Chu Liwei's heart skipped a beat. But this wave only surged for a moment, and before Chu Liwei could react, everything was over. If not for the fact that Chu Liwei could still feel the force surging in her dantian, she would have thought that it was just an illusion. Hey, are you still going in? If you're not going in, then hurry up and get out of the way. Suddenly, an arrogant shout came from behind. Chu Liwei turned around to take a look. There were 3 young people. One was a woman, and 2 were men. They looked to be in their early 20s, and all of them were dressed in luxurious clothes and had good looks. They were surrounded by a noble aura. Obviously, they were disciples from big families. The one who spoke was a tall and thin man. The woman next to him said reproachfully, "Brother Sheng, what did the patriarch say before we came out? Have you forgotten? Remember to keep a low profile when you're outside." The tall and thin man seemed to listen to her words. He scratched his head and chuckled. "Aren't I afraid of being delayed? After all, 4th brother and the rest have been waiting for us in the academy for a long time." The woman smiled embarrassedly and said, "Actually, it's my fault. If I hadn't cultivated too slowly and only broken through to the 9th stage now, the 2 of you wouldn't have to wait for me until now." The 2 young men shook their heads. "You're a little young, but your talent is top-notch. When you enter Lingxiao College, you'll definitely be able to quickly break through to the God realm. Become a God-level master." Chu Liwei's heart moved slightly, and she tactfully took a step back and let them pass. They brushed past each other. The woman nodded slightly at Chu Liwei to express her apology. Chu Liwei suddenly shouted, "Please wait a moment." The woman had already turned around and walked forward, but when she heard this, she turned back to look at her. "Young master, is there anything else?" Chu Liwei smiled and cupped her hands. "I have something to ask you guys." Although her current face wasn't considered devilish, it could still be considered delicate and pretty. Coupled with that pair of clear eyes, it was easy for people to have a good impression of her. With such a faint smile, her eyes were slightly curved and bright, and it seemed to automatically attract people's attention. For some reason, the woman's face heated up slightly. "Please speak, young master," Chu Liwei asked with a smile. "Does Lingxiao College recruit students who are at least rank 9 warriors?" As soon as he finished speaking, Chu Liwei saw the expressions of the people opposite him become strange. They looked at her as if they were looking at something strange. "Where did you come from? You don't even know this?" The young man who had scolded them at the beginning couldn't help but open his mouth. He originally wanted to say a few more words, but the woman next to him glared at him. Strictly speaking, that's not the case. The woman explained in a warm voice. Generally speaking, only cultivators who reach the 9th rank before the age of 25 are qualified to enter Lingxiao College. However, if one's talent was especially outstanding, it was not impossible to make an exception. The final result would depend on the teachers and elders of the academy. Chu Luiwei was silent for a moment. Mystic Master and Celestial Physician also have the same requirements? The woman couldn't help but laugh. Of course not. These two require one to reach the 8th rank before the age of 25. Chu Luiwei heaved a sigh of relief. Thank you, Mississippi. The woman smiled and nodded. She didn't take the initiative to mention her name, nor did she ask Chu Luiwei. Soon, she left with the two young men beside her. In Fang Province, countless people tried to enter Lingxiao College every day, but not many could do it. It would be too tiring and unnecessary if they had to tell each other their identities when they saw each other. Chu Luiwei didn't mind too much. After seeing them leave, he pondered for a moment and also walked in. This time, his dantian was calm. Almost as soon as Chu Luiwei entered the city, in a remote courtyard somewhere in the city, an old man with white hair bounced up from his bed with a bang. He looked around in panic as if he was afraid of something. Then, he hurriedly rushed outside. At this moment, there was a long line outside the courtyard. Most of the people standing there were young men and women. Their faces were filled with unconcealable excitement and anticipation. From time to time, they would look at the white-robed old man sitting on a chair at the front. There was a table in front of him, and there were 3 booklets on the table. In front of each booklet, there were crystals of different colors. At this moment, a young man had placed his hand on the white crystal in the middle and was concentrating on infusing his force into it. His face was flushed red. It was obvious that he was using all his strength. The people behind him didn't make a sound. It was obvious that they were also nervous. They were nervous because the test at this moment was Lingxiao College's exam. As for the old man sitting behind him, he was one of the teachers of the Spirit Firmament Academy in charge of Fangzhou City, Elder Wenxi. It was quiet all around. Elder Wenxi half closed his eyes and looked like he was about to fall asleep at any time. After a moment, a line of words appeared on the white crystal. 23 years old, peak of the 8th rank. Elder Wenxi glanced at it and closed his eyes again. Eliminated. The young man's face turned from red to pale. However, at this moment, Elder Wenxi suddenly opened his eyes again. He suddenly stood up. He looked in the direction of the city gate in horror. At the same time, another old man rushed out of the courtyard. The two of them looked at each other and saw the expression on each other's face. Elder Wenxi's eyes twitched fiercely and said in a trembling voice, That scourge is here again? Digression. Cervical vertebra hurts. I can't straighten my neck. Rest for a while. Continue at 6 o'clock. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Immortal Journey YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.